Okay, live stream is running. Sergeant Blake, can you please start your PC recording?
PC recording all set.
Thank you. Cloud recording all set.
Backup is rolling.
Thank you. Good morning and welcome to today's remote New York City Council hearing for the Subcommittee on Zoning and Franchises. At this time, would all panelists please turn on their videos for verification purposes. To minimize disruption, please place all electronic devices to vibrate or silent mode. If you'd like to submit testimony, please send via email to landusetestimony@council.nyc.gov. Again, that is landusetestimony@council.nyc.gov. Thank you for your cooperation. Chair Moya, we are ready to begin.
Thank you so much. Good morning. I'm Councilmember Francisco Moya, Chair of the Subcommittee on Zoning and Franchises. I'm joined remotely today by council members. I'm going to allow you, Arthur, to name the
Councilmember Grodenchik and Councilmember Caban.
Great. Today, we will hold public hearings on an amendment to the special process agreement related to the Coney Island Amusement Park project plan in Brooklyn, the 1 Wyeth Avenue IBIA proposal, the 79 Key Street rezoning, and the River Ring development, all of which are also in Brooklyn, and rezoning proposals for 160-05 Archer Avenue, Beach 79th Street self-storage, 45-20 83rd Street and 31st Street, and Hoyt Avenue, all of which are in Brooklyn. In Queens. Before we begin, I will first recognize the subcommittee council to review the remote meeting procedures.
Thank you, Chair Moya. I am Arthur Ha, subcommittee counsel to this subcommittee. Members of the public were asked to testify. Members of the public wishing to testify were asked to register for today's hearings. If you wish to testify and have not already registered, we ask that you please do so now by visiting the New York City Council website at www.council.nyc.gov to sign up. As a technical note for the benefit of the viewing public, if you need an accessible version of any of the presentations shown today, please send an email request to landusetestimony@council.nyc.gov. When called to testify, individuals appearing before the subcommittee will remain muted until recognized by the chair to speak. Please take a moment to check your device and confirm that your microphone is on before you begin speaking. Public testimony will be limited to 2 minutes per witness. If you have additional testimony you would like the subcommittee to consider, or if you have written testimony you would like to submit instead of appearing before the subcommittee, you may email it to landusetestimony@council.nyc.gov. Please indicate the LU number and or project name in the subject line of your email. Witnesses are requested to remain in the meeting until excused by the chair, as council members may have questions. And with that, Chair Moya will now continue with today's agenda items.
Thank you, Arthur. I now open the public hearing on 2 pre-considered LU items for the 45-20 83rd Street proposal, which seeks a zoning map and zoning text amendment under ULURP numbers C210041 ZMQ and N210042 ZRQ, and relating to property in Councilmember Drum's district in Queens. Once again, for anyone wishing to testify in this item, if you have not already done so, you must register online, and you may do that now by visiting the council's website at council.nyc.gov/land use. Council, please call the first panel for this item.
The applicant panel for this item will include Richard Lobel and Fayon Beitan, and I'll ask both panelists to now raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before the subcommittee and an answer to all council member questions?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Whenever you're ready to begin, please, you can begin your testimony.
Thank you, Chair Moya. Good morning, council members. Richard Lobel of Sheldon Lobel PC. I'm joined today with Fayon Beitan from my office, as well as the applicant team, Kevin Williams and Amber Cartalian from Equity Environmental, Ken Mirosky from SBJ Group, as well as Scott Barone and John Silviano from Barone Management. If you can load the presentation, please. I'm going to begin with a brief discussion of the zoning actions that are sought today. Kevin and Amber can discuss some of the environmental issues surrounding the rezoning. and the negative declaration received, and Ken can discuss the architectural aspects of the proposal. So this is the 4520 83rd Street rezoning. Next slide. By way of background, this rezoning primarily involves 3 lots that are part of the development site. Lot 223 and lot 80 are the primary lots affected, as well as additional lots which would allow for consistent boundaries for the rezoning. This is in Queens Community District 4. So the rezoning action actually encompasses 2 proposals. The first is to rezone the project area from M11 to R7A. And the second would be to, of course, provide for a mandatory inclusionary housing district to be mapped on the R7A as is required now pursuant to the zoning resolution. The project, as would be permitted by this rezoning and text amendment, would be to facilitate the development of a new 9-story building with roughly 141,000 square feet and approximately 163 dwelling units. This would also allow for an as-of-right school at the premises. This is one that was previously approved by special permit of BSA, as we can discuss as we proceed through the presentation. Next slide. So this is a tax map which shows with more specificity the area of the rezoning. What do we note about the rezoning and the surrounding area? Well, particularly if you look at the dotted area, that's the area to be rezoned from M11. To the north of the site, there is an existing R7A on the remainder of our block. This was rezoned back in 2006. So our M11 on this block really is just a holdover and is kind of an island of M11 in a surrounding sea of residential districts. So you see the R7A to the north and east of the site, including along Broadway, as well as residential districts to the south in the form of R6 and to the west in the form of R6B. So really here, the rezoning would allow for uses that are more within the context of the surrounding area than the existing M11. Next slide. So the next slide demonstrates the land use map. Importantly here, although there's a designation of M11, on the eastern portion of the site, there is under construction Renaissance Charter School. This was permitted pursuant to a BSA special permit obtained last year. And so the rezoning to R7A will have the added benefit of allowing that school to be as of right. And also providing for contextual residential uses adjacent to the school. So it's really seen to be a good thing for the general area as well as for this block. Next slide. Here you can see the zoning change map. You can see the oddly proportioned M11 currently on the block, and then the rezoning to R7A post zoning change. You can also see that this would even out some of the borders of the existing R7A on the site, which would allow for consistent R7A along the entirety of the block. Next slide. So the next slide demonstrates site photo, which shows the school at the premises, which is under construction. Excuse me. And with that, I actually would defer to Ken for a brief discussion with regards to the architectural aspects of the project.
Thank you, Richard. Ken Moraski here with Stephen B. Jacobs Group as the architect for the school project and the proposed zoning for the residential building. Next slide. So this slide just shows the zoning massing of the proposed residential development adjacent to the school. School is in blue, residential building in white. We're proposing a 9-story building with a cellar, 163 dwelling units, with a mix of studio, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 3 bedrooms. The mix that we proposed is more heavy on the 1 and 2 bedrooms for the considering the community. The massings you see here are consistent with the adjacent R7A massings that you see next to our site. And we're proposing a 141,000 square foot residential development. Next slide. This is just a site plan showing the location of our residential development fronting 47th Avenue with the school fronting 83rd Street. We're proposing an interior courtyard for light and air and distance between our school and the residential development. Next slide. This is just a zoning section showing the residential building next to the school. We're going to have our accessory parking, detention tank, and bicycle parking below grade, with lobby and amenity recreation space for the residential building on the first floor and apartments, dwelling units on the floors above. Next slide. And these are just some illustrations of the proposed development. This is a view looking down 47th Avenue towards 82nd Street. Elmhurst Plaza, which is a neighboring development, is off to the left. Our building would be composed of like a metal paneling system, large windows to let in light and air. And we have this transitional bulk because we're next to the R6B district, kind of showing how our building would step back up at the upper floors. Next slide. And this is just another view looking down 82nd Street toward our development. Once again, showing the setbacks up at the top. And then next slide. And then I'll turn it back over to Rich, who can talk more about the affordability and the project.
Thanks, Ken. So briefly, just touching upon the affordability, of course, we're requesting a text amendment to Appendix F to allow for mandatory inclusionary to be imposed on the site. And this would result in anywhere from 41 to 49 units of affordability, either pursuant to option 1 or option 2. The applicant has elected to map option 1 and option 2 to allow for greater flexibility within the project area. And so depending on the option, we would be averaging either 60 or 80% AMIs in accordance with the proposal that you see in front of you. There's also a breakdown between 60% and 80% on the bottom of the screen, as well as 40%, which would be achieved depending on the option. So with that, next slide. That concludes the bulk of the presentation. Again, we have Kevin and Amber from Equity who are available for environmental discussions. But with that, we would ask the chair and the council members if there's any questions.
Thank you, Richard. Yeah, just one quick question here. The community board had a lengthy set of conditions. Could you identify some of their concerns and respond to them as best as you can here today?
Sure. So, and I think actually it might be useful to have Kevin and Amber address this. There were some discussions with regards to infrastructure and the ability of the street system, as well as the water retention and sewer systems to handle the capacity of the additional development here. I would just note that with regards to bulk and the actual size of the building, that was not really a general concern, given the fact that we are adjacent to R7A districts on our block, as well as to the east. And also we've got, the existing R7A building to the north of us at 8 stories with 140 units. And prior to moving forward to Kevin and Amber, and I would also ask that the slide presentation be reloaded because some of the environmental concerns that were discussed at the community board are on the slides. It's important to note that the R7A that's there now on this block from 2006 precedes mandatory inclusionary housing. So the primary difference in terms of inclusionary housing is that that building that exists to the north of us did not have a requirement, whereas with MIH now, all these R7A districts that are being rezoned will carry an MIH requirement. So we're happy to be able to bring that affordability to the area. Kevin, Amber, do you want to briefly touch on the sewer and stormwater issues?
Sure, I can start, and then if Amber wants to add something. Kevin Williams from Equity Environmental. So as folks here may know, the seeker analyses, there are some 22 different categories of impact analyses, and 2 of them involve storm and sewer. Generally, those sections of seeker, and this is probably not satisfying, to the community board members, but the project falls well below city environmental quality review standards to evaluate capacity analyses for a combined sewer area. Generally you have to get to 500, 600, 700 units in such an area to trigger an analysis. So the architect, though, has identified and deployed several measures as shown on the screen to provide a more sustainable building. And, many of these are per, emerging requirements over the last several years through the Department of Buildings, that provide for sustainability measures. And obviously a lot of the concerns that have emerged were related to, the recent storm that really inundated New York City in multiple areas. This area in particular is not one of those that was heavily impacted in the Queens area, which we know that was one of the most heavily impacted boroughs of the city in certain areas. Having said that, when comparing this current site, which is entirely impermeable, where you have a previous industrial area and a parking lot, the building as designed when compared to a potential M11, such as the paper production facility that was there before, actually, would result in an improvement, most likely, in terms of stormwater management and stormwater capture in the area. So I just asked that be taken into consideration, and we're available for additional comments or inquiries regarding capacity issues as required by the council.
Great. Thank you for that. That's all the questions that I have for the panel. We've been joined by council members Traeger, Borelli, and Ayala. Council, do we have any council members with any questions?
No, Chair, I see no members with questions. I'll just note that we've also been joined by Councilmember Levin.
Okay. There being no further questions, the applicant panel is excused. Council, are there any members of the public who wish to testify on the 45-20 83rd Street rezoning proposal?
We have one member of the public to testify on this item, and we will call her now. We are calling on Stacy Gautier, is it? I apologize if I mispronounced that. Okay.
That's fine. That's right. Thank you so much, and good morning, everybody. My name is Stacy Gautier. I'm the principal of the Renaissance Charter School in Jackson Heights and the executive director of the Renaissance Charter School 2, the school referred to in this presentation. First, I want to just say a public thank you to Chair Moya and to Councilmember Drum for all your support for both of our schools for the last many years. Renaissance has been around for over 22 years, and Renaissance 2 is very excited to be coming to our permanent home in September 2022. I strongly endorse this project because I think that the area will be better served by having housing. Will continue to improve the neighborhood feel over there. It's a wonderful area with a lot of families, a big park nearby. Our building is going to be a beautiful school, and we look forward to serving the students of District 24. Just one other piece, we've done a lot of community outreach in District 24 and been very welcomed there. And so I think having housing on the other side of this lot is really a preferred type of development versus something else that might go. And we will, of course, on the part of the school, continue to be the great neighbors that we are already in Jackson Heights, and look forward to working with everybody in Community School District 24. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stacy. Thank you for your testimony. Good to see you. Glad you're doing well. Council, do we have any members with questions to the panelists?
No, Chair, I see no members with questions.
Okay, there being no further questions, the panel is now excused.
All right, we'll see if there are any other speakers at this time, Mr. Chair. If there are any other members of the public who wish to testify on the 45-20 83rd Street proposal, please press the raise hand button now. The chair will stand the meeting at ease very briefly to confirm. Chair, if you'll allow, I'll just also advise that we've been joined by Councilmember Reynoso and Councilmember Rivera.
Thank you.
Chair Moya, I see no other members of the public who wish to testify on this item.
Okay, thank you. There being no members of the public who wish to testify on the pre-considered LU items for the 45-2083rd Street proposal under ULURP numbers C210041ZMQ and N210042ZRQ, the public hearing is now closed and the items are laid over. At this time, we're going to vote on two items previously heard by the subcommittee at our October 25th and November 18th meetings. We will vote to approve with modifications LU numbers 914 and 915 for the proposed special Brooklyn Navy Yard district relating to property in Councilmember Levin's district in Brooklyn. The proposal seeks a zoning text and zoning map amendment to establish the new special Brooklyn Navy Yard district. Our modification will be to include periodic reporting requirements relating to Navy Yard tenants. Councilmember Levin is in support of the proposal as modified. We will also vote to approve LUs 925 and 926 for the 103-16 Van Wyck Expressway rezoning relating to property in Councilmember Adams's district in Queens. The proposal seeks a zoning map amendment to rezone an existing R3A district to an R6B C23 district and a related zoning text amendment to establish an MIH program area utilizing options 1 and 2. Our modifications will be to strike MIH option 2 while retaining option 1. Councilmember Adams is in support of this proposal. And now I will call for a vote to approve with modifications I have described, LUs 914, 915, 925, and 926. Council, if you can please call the roll.
Chair Moya.
I vote aye.
Councilmember Levin.
I vote aye.
Councilmember Reynoso. Come back to Councilmember Reynoso. Councilmember Grodenchik.
Aye.
Councilmember Ayala.
I vote aye.
Councilmember Rivera.
Aye.
Councilmember Borelli.
I vote aye.
Councilmember Reynoso. Councilmember Reynoso on a vote of the land use items.
I vote aye on all.
Okay, Chair, by a vote of 7 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and no abstentions, the items are adopted, recommended for approval to the full land use committee.
Thank you. And with that, we will return to our public hearings. And with that, I now open the public hearing on the pre-considered LU item related to the Coney Island Amusement Park project plan for the proposed third amendment to the special process agreement and relating to property in Councilmember Traeger's district in Brooklyn. I will remind the viewing public, for anyone wishing to testify on this item, if you have not already done so, you must register online, and you may do that now by visiting the council's website at council.nyc.gov/land use. Council, if you could, please call the first panel for this item.
The applicant panel for this item will include Sean Freyas of EDC, Alessandro Zamperla of CAI, and Dennis Fuderis of Dano's Wonder Wheel Park. I'll ask all panelists to now raise your right hands. Thank you. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give to this subcommittee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and that you will answer all council member questions truthfully?
I do.
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. You may begin.
Time starts now.
Good morning, Chair Moya and members of the Subcommittee on Zoning and Franchises. Would you mind bringing up my presentation, please? Thank you. My name is Sean Fries, and I am a Vice President of Portfolio Management at the New York City Economic Development Corporation. I am joined by Alessandro Zamperla from Central Amusement International and Dennis Voudouris from Voodoo Food Corp and the operator of Dino's Wonder Wheel. We are pleased to testify before the subcommittee in support of the resolution to approve the Third Amendment to the Agreement for Special Process or New York City Council review and approval of Coney Island Amusement Park Project Plan, otherwise referred to as the Special Process Agreement, which governs the historic Coney Island Amusement District. This amendment would authorize the city to extend its lease with NYC EDC and NYC EDC to extend our ground leases with the operators of the Coney Island Amusement Parks, CAI and Dino's, for an additional 10-year period from 2027 to 2037. As part of this transaction, CAI intends to enter into sublease extensions with current small business boardwalk subtenants, Brooklyn Beach Shop, Hoffa Foods, One Summer, and Tom's Coney Island for the same 10-year period to 2037. Please note that NYC EDC entering into any ground lease extensions must first be approved by EDC's Board of Directors and required notice provided in compliance with the requirements of the New York State Public Authorities Law, and EDC must also receive applicable lease extensions from the city. Additionally, the Third Amendment to the Special Process Agreement must be signed by City Council and the Mayor. Next slide, please. So here you can see a map of the Coney Island amusement area, along with a map of Brooklyn to help orient you. The specific portions that we're discussing today are outlined in green. So CAI, Dino's, and the small businesses at Coney Island have faced disproportionate impacts from the COVID crisis, and you'll hear directly from them about that later. Through this proposed amendment, though, to the Special Process Agreement and the resulting ground lease and sublease extensions, the city will do its part to support one of the world's most iconic and urban amusement parks, along with the small businesses that are central to New York City's economic and cultural life. Next slide, please. So let's talk about how we got here. The 2009 Coney Island rezoning set the stage for much of the redevelopment that is taking place in the neighborhood today, including the preservation and revitalization of the iconic Coney Island amusement area. So first, the 2009 rezoning permitted mixed-use developments in the Coney Island district, and in the past decade, the city has made significant investments in infrastructure and housing in the Coney Island district, including funding for thousands of units of affordable and mixed income housing, new retail options, and new office space for city programs like the City Human Resources Administration and Health and Hospitals. Everyone at NYC at EDC would like to thank Councilmember Mark Traeger for his continued support and advocacy for the Coney Island community and this historic amusement area. Second, the 2009 rezoning called for the reactivation of vacant parcels at Coney Island with infill development to support beloved attractions by creating new world-class amusement developments and by strengthening the historic Coney Island amusement area. And as we'll discuss in a moment, today's proposed lease extension will help achieve that goal. And finally, the 2009 rezoning created the Special Process Agreement, or SPA, that we're here to discuss today. Under the SPA, the city and EDC are authorized to enter into leases on land within the Coney Island amusement area. Under the authority granted by the SPA in 2009 and subsequently amended in 2013 and 2018, the city leased property to EDC, and EDC entered into ground leases with CAI and Dino's to develop and operate world-class amusements and entertainment attractions in Coney Island. These ground leases are set to expire in 2027. In the past dozen years, CAI and Dino's have made significant investments to help revitalize Coney Island's amusement area, aided by the council's approval of previous amendments to the SPA. In 2013, the council approved the first amendment to the special process agreement, which facilitated CAI's construction of the Thunderbolt roller coaster, as shown in the picture at the top. And in 2018, the council approved the second amendment. This amendment added new vacant properties for development. And you can see a picture of the groundbreaking here on the bottom. And next season, these lots will be the setting for a brand new log flume ride, an open ropes course, more dining and entertainment options, and additional public open space to be enjoyed by New Yorkers for years to come. We thank the council for their assistance to enable these crucial investments, which will help to cement Coney Island as the people's playground. Next slide, please. Thanks. So we are here today to ask for the council's assistance once again by approving the third amendment process agreement to authorize the city and EDC to enter into a 10-year extension of the leases from the city to EDC and from EDC to CAI and Dinos from 2027 to 2037. Again, and here on the bottom is a picture of the Coney Island Boardwalk. These lease extensions will help support one of the world's most iconic urban amusement parks. Its boardwalk, the small businesses and residents who are central to New York City's economic and cultural life. The COVID-19 crisis presented significant challenges for the amusements in the Coney Island amusement area. Typically, more than 5 million people across the Coney Island amusement area help to sustain the long-standing small businesses deeply embedded in the district's rich cultural history. However, due to the mandated government closure in 2020, Luna Park, their respective subtenants, Dino's Wonder Wheel, and surrounding areas were shut down for 18 months throughout the entire 2020 season, resulting in severe financial losses. This proposed lease extension will help CAI, Dino's, and the subtenants recoup losses incurred because of the government closures and will support their continued efforts and investment in the amusement area. To close, by approving the third amendment to the special process agreement, the council will ensure that the unique and iconic Coney Island amusement area and community continues to thrive for future generations. And it will help the city take one step closer toward a recovery for all. We therefore respectfully request your consideration and approval of the third amendment to the special process agreement. I will now turn the floor over to Alessandro Zamperla from CAI to describe his company's history in Coney Island and their shared and continued investment in this historic amusement area. Thank you. You may also now take down the presentation deck.
Good morning, everyone. Tremoya, council member, thank you for your time and for your attention. My name is Alessandro Zamperla. I'm the president and CEO of Central Amusement International, Inc. And we are here today to support the council's approval of the third amendment to the special process agreement, which would authorize EDC to extend the interim ground lease with CAI. As Sean explained earlier, in conjunction with this ground lease, CAI will simultaneously extend our subleases with our small business subtenants that, like Luna Park, are critical to the identity of Coney Island. In coordination with EDC and the Parks Department, CAI has revitalized the historic amusement district with the development of Luna Park in Coney Island and has operated amusement rides and attraction in the Coney Island Amusement District since 2010. In order to fulfill our shared vision of returning Coney Island to its glory days, our small business has invested tens of millions into development of the Coney Island Amusement District through Luna Park, which benefited our small business community in the amusement district, brought record revenues to the boardwalk businesses, and provided thousands of jobs opportunities to the broader Coney Island community. With 11 years of experience working in Coney Island, we have demonstrated great care for the neighborhood context, not only by recreating a thrilling and affordable amusement park for all ages, but also by strengthening the relationship with our community surrounding Luna Park. A key goal of CAI is to hire locally to create economic opportunities and to support the growth of a professional ecosystem that benefits the surrounding neighborhood. With this purpose, in 2021, we launched the Luna Park Leadership Academy courses designed to enrich our employees' skill sets for long-term career growth in the hospitality industry. As we continue to invest in the Coney Island Amusement District, we'll continue to work with the City of New York, local organizations, to provide local hiring programs for Luna Park, and to expand and strengthen our relationship with local officials, schools, and community organizations. In addition to hiring locally, CI has been building a strong relationship with the surrounding neighborhood by founding the Coney Island Alliance in 2012 with other key stakeholders to facilitate the collaboration and cooperation amongst the Coney Island business community and the residential community. In 2018, CI developed Donation Day, a day where we provide free entry on rides all day to guests that make a small donation to a local community organization, and we help and highlight local
Time
organizations
expired.
that support children. Hello? Can you hear me? I heard something.
Yes, you can continue.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Sorry. Donation Day, a day where we provide free entry on rides all day to guests that make a small donation to a local community organization, and we help and highlight local organization that supports children from difficult backgrounds. As our neighborhood has been hit very hard by the COVID pandemic, CI partnered with the City of New York to incentivize COVID-19 vaccinations by donating 10,000 wristbands and rides on the Coney Island Cyclone to Vax for NYC. Although nothing could have prepared us for the financial challenges that CI faced due to COVID-19, as our operation was shut down for 18 months throughout the entire 2020 season, we're thankful to be operating again. 2020, amongst other things, demonstrated how critical the amusements are to the economic ecosystem of Coney Island and South Brooklyn, as our small business subtenants were allowed to operate during the season that Luna Park was closed, but they still suffered severe financial losses. To make matters worse for CI, amusement parks were excluded from critical federal and state aid programs designed to help businesses shutter due to the pandemic. For example, we were not included in the Shutter Venue Operators Grant. Fortunately, as it became clear that outdoor amusement parks was one of the safest activities in a COVID context, and Luna Park in Coney Island was allowed to reopen, New Yorkers have been unbelievably supportive. Unfortunately, CI and our small business subtenants will not recuperate the economic losses. However, an extension will provide economic stability while we continue our long-term investment in Coney Island as New York City recovers from the unprecedented pandemic and its devastating effects. As CI continues to invest in the development of Coney Island with our new attraction and environmentally friendly pedestrian plaza slated to open in 2022, Luna Park will create additional 100 jobs for the local community. Despite the severe financial losses due to the pandemic, our commitment to Coney Island has not wavered. We are continuing our long-term investment, and this proposed lease extension will help ensure economic stability that will help move the historic amusement district and our small family businesses, CI along with our subtenants, from recovery to resilience. As Sean explained earlier, in conjunction with this ground lease extension, we will simultaneously extend our subleases with our small business subtenants, who are also committed to investing in Coney Island for years to come and are critical to the identity of Coney Island. We thank you, Council, for your support, most importantly, Council Member Traeger, and we respectfully request your consideration and approval of the Third Amendment to the Special Process Agreement. Thank you.
If we could now pass it to Dennis Vodaris from Dino's.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. My name is Dennis Vodaris, and I am the co-owner, along with my brother Steve, of Dino's Wonder Wheel Amusement Park, home of the world-famous New York City landmark Wonder Wheel. Our parents began their journey in Coney Island in 1966 as operators of a small hot dog stand on the boardwalk. In 1970, they opened another hot dog stand in what was then known as Ward's Kiddie Park, in the shadow of the Wonder Wheel. A decade later or so, they purchased the Wonder Wheel from its original owner, and Dino's Wonder Wheel Park was born. At a time when Coney Island was less than desirable for investment, my family began to rehabilitate and restore the Wonder Wheel. We purchased new rides and restored old ones. In 1989, the Wonder Wheel became an official New York City landmark. We continued to invest and build a family-oriented amusement park. We invited members of the Salton Sea Mission to come on opening day for free and to do a blessing of our rides. We had 12 or so families show up that day, but today, that tradition started by my parents over 35 years ago continues. And this past opening day in 2021, over 500 families came to give their blessings and enjoy the rides for free. In 2019, we acquired the adjacent abandoned lot on West 12th Street with plans to expand Dino's. With the help and support of third-generation Ruderis boys working at the park, my son Dinos, my nephews DJ and Teddy, we decided to build upon the park's family demographic and seek a unique attraction that would not compete with other Coney Island rides, but would complement them. We traveled to other amusement parks around the country and trade shows to do our research and made the decision to build a brand new family thrill roller coaster on our newly acquired lot right next to the Wonder Wheel, the Phoenix. Then came COVID. What now, we asked each other. Closed for an entire season, which hit us all very hard, both financially and emotionally. This was devastating. We have had rainy seasons and lost holiday weekends in the past, but never an entire summer. We made the decision to do the only thing we knew how to do, what our parents taught us to do, and forged ahead with our plans to build. We borrowed money and leveraged our park to move ahead. We were able to keep our staff and family working and to complete the Phoenix, which opened up this past July 4th weekend. We are here today to support the council's approval of the Third Amendment to the Special Process Agreement, which would authorize EDC to extend the interim ground lease with Dino's. The COVID-19 crisis presented significant challenges for our businesses. I don't have to tell you guys. We want to continue our long-term investment in Coney Island, and this proposed lease extension will help us do that. I want to thank the New York City Council for their support, and most importantly, Council Member Traeger. And we respectfully request your consideration and approval of the Third Amendment to the Special Process Agreement, which will help ensure that Coney Island remains one of the world's best amusement districts. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dennis and Alessandro and Sean. I'm Councilmember Steve Levin. I'm filling in for Chair Moya for a short period of time here. I want to acknowledge Councilmember Caban, who's joined us as well. Welcome, Tiffany. And turn it over to Councilmember Traeger for questions.
Thank you, Councilmember Levin and Chair Moya and members of the committee. For over 100 years, the Coney Island Amusement District has been an American icon, a potent symbol for the diversity, freedom, and opportunity offered here. The lights of Steeplechase Park were the first thing many immigrants would see as they made their way to Ellis Island. People of all races, classes, and creeds flocked to Coney Island. The Nickel Empire, because anyone could enjoy a day of sun and fun here, as long as they had a nickel for the train fare. Throughout these years, Coney Island has faced many existential threats, from fires to Hurricane Sandy and even Robert Moses. Yet, throughout all that, there was never a summer when the amusement parks in Coney Island weren't open, up until 2020. The COVID-19 pandemic forced the closure of amusement parks for the first time since Sea Lion Park opened in 1895. This had devastating consequences, not just for the two amusement parks, Dino's Wonder Wheel Park and Luna Park, but also for the generational family-operated small businesses on the boardwalk. You will hear from these businesses today about the devastating impact of these closures. We are not remotely out of the woods. While the parks were able to reopen safely last summer, according to New York City and Co., tourism is not expected to fully recover for several years. With each new variant, there is additional uncertainty about how long it will take us to bounce back. While performing arts venues received dedicated federal aid to help sustain them during their closure, no such aid was offered to the family-run businesses that make Coney Island unique. PPP, which, while helpful, did not fully cover the losses, and many of the boardwalk small businesses did not ultimately receive restaurant revitalization funding. For the first time in its history, Coney Island is facing an existential threat from which it may not recover. Today, we are considering an item that provides the first step to rebuilding the Coney Island we all know and love. I want to thank EDC, Sean Fries, Sabrina Lipman, Winthrop Hoyt, Lydia Downing, Rachel Loeb, Karen Lapidus, Ricky DaCosta, Roddy Miranda, and Justin Turner for working with me and my office on this issue. Under consideration is a proposal to authorize EDC to extend its lease with Luna Park and Dino's for an additional 10 years to 2037. This lease extension would grant necessary stability and security for these iconic family businesses, both of which have recently committed to making significant improvements to their parks, with Dino's opening the Phoenix roller coaster this summer, which I did take a ride on, pretty thrilling ride, and Luna Park in construction on several new rides. But recovery cannot be for two businesses alone. As part of this, Luna Park has reached agreements with 4 of its subtenants: Paul's Daughter, Ruby's Bar and Grill, Tom's Coney Island, and the Brooklyn Beach Shop, to offer more sustainable rental terms and lease extensions that run until 2037, coterminous with Luna Park's extension. Many of these family businesses have been in Coney Island for generations. I want to thank Alessandro, Tracy, Tina, Al, Mike, Matt, Jimmy, Maya, and Dennis for their patient, collaborative work to reach these agreements. The Coney Island Amusement District is what it is because you are there and because your families have been there for our community through good times and bad. Having worked so hard to reach 6 agreements to help 6 iconic family-run businesses survive and thrive, we must ensure that this process moves forward according to the letter and spirit of these agreements. Unfortunately, because of additional approvals, this process will need to be completed in the next term. I don't need to tell any stakeholder from Coney Island about the challenges of enforcing commitments across administration transitions. We have innumerable examples of broken promises from the 2009 rezoning. Today, I will be seeking additional assurances from EDC and CAI that the agreements that we have all worked so hard to reach will be executed. After so much instability caused by the pandemic, we all deserve some security in the knowledge that we have reached agreements that will preserve the Coney Island we all know and love for another generation. I want to thank Jeff Campagna and Amy Levitan for their assistance, as well as my extraordinary, and I quote, extraordinary Chief of Staff, Anna Scaife, for her tremendous and tireless work on this issue. I thank Chair Moya and members of the zoning subcommittee for their time and for their consideration. And with that, Councilmember Levin, I do just have some questions for both EDC and CAI, if that's okay.
Sure thing. Yep.
Thank you so much. To EDC, if the council approves this application, what additional approvals are required for the agreements that EDC has reached with its tenants to move forward?
First, thank you, Council Member, for such impactful words. I believe the remaining approvals include mayoral approval, borough board approval, and EDC board approval. In addition, I just want to renote again that we are required to provide notice and compliance with the requirements of the New York State Public Authorities Law. And then also we must receive our respective lease extensions from the city as well.
Given that the next steps in this process will occur after an administration transition, what assurances can EDC provide to its tenants and their subtenants that these agreements will move forward?
Thank you. Well, we certainly share the same goal to ensure a positive path forward, and we fully anticipate that all subleases will be signed prior to the execution of the master lease extensions. And then again, as I mentioned earlier, our EDC board must approve these lease extensions as well. But honestly, we wouldn't be here unless we also anticipated that approval.
And what is that time frame?
honestly don't have that in front of me, a timetable that I could answer specifically right now, but I'm happy to come back and have someone from our office reach out to you with a more specific timetable.
I would greatly appreciate that because time is certainly of the essence. And will EDC commit on the record to only approve the lease extension for its tenants authorized under this action if their tenant Luna Park has signed lease amendments with the 4 subtenants in accordance with the terms they have mutually agreed to?
Again, we certainly anticipate that all subleases will be signed prior to the execution of the master lease extensions. That being said, I think in a practical matter, if one of the subleases was not executed because of problematic actions by CAI, then we probably won't extend the ground lease with CAI. On the other hand, if one of the subleases failed to reach final agreement because, let's say, the subtenant pulled out of the deal, for example, or chose not to move forward, then we probably will continue with the extension of the ground lease with CAI, as we want to make sure that the other subtenants are also able to recover. Again, our goal here really is to continue to support the recovery and provide a path forward for long-term investment for Dino's, for CAI, and the small businesses through this amendment.
Okay, because to be clear, they have reached agreements, and we just want to make sure that that is baked into this because we need a win-win for Luna Park and the critical subtenants. So I have a question for CAI, for Luna Park, for Alessandro. And again, I want to just state for the record that they have made tremendous investments to the Coney Island community, both in terms of their business, hiring local folks, many charitable events. Just recently, they were at Thanksgiving distribution where we gave out meals to families, and we do appreciate that. And I think it's not a secret that we are striving towards an agreement that is a win-win for Luna Park and for the subtenants that have worked in good faith, really, to strike agreements with Luna Park. So, question for Alessandro is: are you, and this is an important one, certainly for my office, for me, are you willing to concretize the term sheets which you have signed with the 4 subtenants in the form of leases with a condition precedent clause, which will only bind you to those terms if you receive your lease extension from EDC? And will you commit to doing so before this council's final stated meeting on December 16th?
Good morning, Councilmember Trigger, and thank you so much for your support. You mentioned, a couple of times, this is a win-win approach. That's what we want. When we need to ensure the stability, the recovery, and the resilience of Coney Island and the amusement district. We have executed term sheets with the subtenants, and we realize how important it is to achieve, and to make progress to the point that we already asked our attorneys to draft, to start drafting the subleases, and we'll make, our best to continue to make progress. And as Sean mentioned, that will be a condition, for us to receive our lease extension.
So, just to be clear, you are willing to concretize the term sheets which you've already signed with the 4 subtenants in the form of the leases, right? That's something that you are committed to doing, right, Alessandro?
We want, it's part, again, so it is a win-win, transaction where we want to ensure that the subtenants that have always shown extreme commitment, investment in Coney Island, they are, supported so they can not only recover, but again, be resilient. So those, term sheets, those will be the terms of the sublease amendments that will be executed. And as obviously condition precedent, we'll have to receive our lease extension from EDC.
Right, because the term sheets are not binding. Signed leases are binding. And are you committing to get this done before the vote on December 16th?
We'll do our best. I want to also be very honest. Today's December 2nd. There are multiple parties, so we'll do our best. As I said, on our end, we already asked our attorneys to draft the sublease amendments. Okay,
just making clear, Alessandro, and I appreciate that. It just be very crystal clear that is critically important for us, because in order it's the win-win. We just need to make sure that we have signed agreements. Okay, last thing I'll say here, and I understand that in addition to these 4 generationally family-owned small businesses with whom you have reached agreements, and Nathan's, you have one whole, I'm just making sure that I have everything here correct, Alessandro, as far as the time frame. I'll follow up with you and your team afterwards. We have more work to do on this front. And again, I thank everyone for their time. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Councilmember Traeger. And thank you to Councilmember Levin for stepping in. Council, do we have any other members who have questions for this panel?
No, Chair. I see no other members with questions for the panel.
Okay. Seeing that there are no more questions for this panel, the witness panel is now excused. Council, if you could, please call up the next panel.
The first public witness panel will include Jimmy Kokotas, Maya Haddad Miller, Michael Serrell, and Tina Georgiulakos. Apologies for any mispronunciation there. Jimmy, Maya, Michael, and Tina, if you have not already done so, please accept promotion to panelist, and please also accept any invitation to unmute. And with that, we will now hear from the panel, beginning with Jimmy, and then Jimmy Kokotas, and then Maya Haddad Miller.
Time starts now.
Mr. Kokotas, if you can hear me, I need you to accept the unmute request in order to begin your testimony.
Okay, we're good?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you to the council. Thank you to the committee and to the subcommittee for the opportunity today to speak on this very important matter. My name is Jimmy Kokotas. I am the 3rd generation owner of Tom's Restaurant of Prospect Heights. In 2012, after negotiations and talks with CAI, we were able to bring a family-run, sit-down, family-friendly business to the Coney Island Boardwalk, which was not there for the last 50 or 60 years prior to us arriving. There's been plenty of fast food amusements and other different types of food options, but never a sit-down restaurant that would be friendly to young children, to older adults, and to anybody else where they could sit down inside, climate controlled, with private bathrooms and things of that nature. We were very happy to bring that to the amusement area. We had a very good run through those years. We were active in the community, working with our local schools, working with the different volunteer groups in Coney Island, and we were proud to participate, host Christmas parties, Thanksgiving parties for the children, and again, be active members of the community, the broader community of Coney Island. Things were challenging through the years. It's tough to be a sit-down business on the boardwalk through the inclement weather of the winter. But we were able to do it. We used to stay open for probably around 300 days of the year. So even tourists that came to Coney Island were able to find something open on the boardwalk, place to sit down, place to get something to eat. With COVID, obviously, everything changed. Our business was down approximately 93% in 2020 and approximately 75–80% in 2021. We were fortunate enough to get the PPP loans, the Restaurant Revitalization Fund funds as well. And without those, we would not have been able to even make it to this point in the discussion. We speak in favor of this proposal for CAI so that they can in turn extend our leases, which will add some stability and at least going forward, give us an opportunity to survive. We've taken loans out on the business. We've taken loans out on our business, and again, giving us the extension here and the additional years, and CAI making some concessions and lowering our rents for the future years helps us.
Appreciate it.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Maya Haddad Miller will be the next speaker, and for Michael and Tina, if you can hear me, please accept the promotion to panelist and stand by for your testimony. And now we'll hear from Maya Haddad Miller.
Time starts now.
Good morning. Hi, my name is Maya Haddad Miller, and I own and operate Brooklyn Beach Shop on the Coney Island Boardwalk with my dad, Haim Haddad. 25 years ago in 96, my dad opened a discount store on the corner of Mermaid and Stillwell, where McDonald's stands today. By 2003, it went out of business. That same year, he opened Coney Island Beach Shop right next door to the original Nathan's Famous location. By the summer of 2012, we opened Brooklyn Beach Shop on the boardwalk. That same year, Hurricane Sandy flooded his shop off the boardwalk, and everything inside was destroyed. He had no flood insurance, but we built back. By 2019, our family had 6 retail shops within the amusement district, but in 2020, only 2 were able to open. And those 2 shops ended down 80% to 2019. Lately, one of our biggest challenges has been rent. Our current rental terms are not suited for the environment we are in. As you may or may not know, most boardwalk subtenants signed lease renewals right before the pandemic. I signed mine on March 17, 2020, the day after I closed my doors for the pandemic. These new leases are based on revenues projections from 2019, which in the current environment, as you know, are not sustainable. If you recall, there was very little protection for boardwalk subtenants in the original underlying leases between EDC and ride operator. But this extension addresses some of those concerns, at least through to 2037. It would bring my family and some of my neighbors stability during these unstable times, and it will better prepare us for the new normal. The new normal requires realistic rental terms that can accommodate a slow recovery in an unpredictable future. More specifically, I have signed a term sheet with CAI summarizing the principal terms of a proposed amendment to my existing sublease, as previously mentioned. Will it protect me from another year like 2020?
Time expired.
Not entirely, but I support this because it will put me in a much better position to bounce back and it offers me stability. So my time ran out. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next speaker, please.
Tina Georgiulakis, and if you can hear me, Tina, please accept the unmute request in order to begin your testimony.
Time starts now.
Tina Georgiulakis. Thank you.
First, I'd like to thank Mark Traeger and his staff for their tremendous support during the last 2 years. Knowing how much he cared about Coney Island and our businesses helped me navigate through this crazy time. Hi, my name is Tina Georgiulakis. I'm the owner of Paul's Daughter and Paul's Daughter Restaurant on the Coney Island Boardwalk, and I am Paul's daughter. My family has been in continuous operation since 1962. My dad started working in Coney Island almost since the day he immigrated from Greece in 1946. He built this business from nothing and turned it into the iconic place that it is today. Sadly, he passed away 2 years ago. He was a beloved member of the community and a friend to all, and his devotion to Coney Island is legendary. There's nothing he loved more. I've worked there since I was a kid. He asked me to help him 25 years ago, just one summer, and one summer turned into 25 years later. I've seen all kinds of things happen in the last 60, 70 years that my dad was on the boardwalk. Hurricanes, Sandy, gangs, up and down summers, down 30, 2003, it rained every weekend. It was unbelievable. It was just a terrific, the business was down 30%, but I've never encountered anything like this. Our business was down 80%. This lease extension is our lifeline. We won't make it another summer. So we need it. I'm in support of it. I had a whole list of things I was going to say, but everybody's kind of covered everything. So I give my support for this lease extension. And thank you so much to
Thank you, Tina. Thank you so much for your testimony today.
Michael Serrell, if you can hear me, Michael Serrell, you are being called to testify. And if you can hear me, we need you to accept the promotion invitation to panelists in order to begin your testimony.
Time
Michael
starts
Serrell.
now.
Michael Serrell, if you can hear me and you are on a telephone, you can unmute yourself by pressing *6 on your keypad. *6 to unmute yourself on a phone. Once again, it's for Michael Searle. Michael Searle, if you can hear me, we need you to accept the unmute request in order to begin your testimony. And you can do that on a phone by pressing *6 on your keypad. Okay, Chair, apologies.
Yeah.
Yeah, we will attempt to come back, but we will now call the next panel, which should include Alexandra, excuse me. Alexandra Silversmith and Talisha Lee. Alexandra Silversmith to go first, followed by Talisha Lee.
Time starts now.
Let's see if we can, Talisha Lee, can you hear me? If you can hear me, we need you to accept the unmute request in order to begin your testimony. There she is, Talisha Lee. Please accept the unmute request, and then you can begin your testimony. Talisha Lee or Alexandra Silversmith, if you can hear me, please press the raise hand button. And if you intend to testify, please accept the unmute request in order to begin to speak.
Okay, I see Talisha there.
I see Talisha Lee. Talisha Lee, if you can accept the unmute request, then we can take your testimony. If you do not intend to testify, you can.
I think that worked.
Thank you.
You got it? Okay.
Yeah, okay. Hi, my name is Talisha Lee. I'm reading a letter on behalf of April Simpson.
You may begin.
Okay. My name is April Simpson, and I'm the president of Queensbridge Houses Resident Association. As the president, my mission is to uplift, encourage, and advocate for residents in public housing. In the last 18 months, we've really seen how badly new housing stock is needed. There are upwards of 50,000 homeless people in New York, including children. Every time we put an affordable unit online, it gives someone a greater opportunity to get a home. I am speaking today to show my support for the 31st Street rezoning, as it will provide affordable housing options, a new senior and youth center, along with high quality jobs and community programming. One of the reasons I am most passionate about this project is because of the new youth center. High quality youth programs promote positive youth development and offer a safe space where children can explore their potential. This project is partnering with HANIC and Urban Upbound to create programming that best serves Astoria needs. HANIC service to the neighborhood spans almost 50 years since their founding in 1972. They have been providing services including youth programming, adult literacy classes, legal clinics, healthcare access programs, employment and training resources, and family counseling, along with running several senior centers. Please accept this testimony as my support for the rezoning. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Alexandra Silversmith. Alexandra Silversmith, if you can hear me, please accept the unmute request if you see one. There we go. Thank you.
Time starts now.
Good morning. My name is Alexandra Silversmith, and I'm the Executive Director of the Alliance for Coney Island. I would like to thank you for the opportunity to testify today about the third amendment to the leases for Central Amusement International and Dino's Wonder Wheel Amusement Park. My nonprofit, the Alliance for Coney Island, seeks to continue the revitalization of Coney Island and increase visitorship. Both of these entities are critical to the health of the amusement district. The closure in 2020 caused by the COVID-19 pandemic had devastating consequences on their businesses and the surrounding businesses in the district. The pandemic illustrated the degree to which Coney Island truly operates as an ecosystem, and without these two strong operators, the area cannot thrive. Additionally, both businesses have shown a strong commitment to Coney Island with private investment. Dino's and CAI both are defying expectations during this pandemic and continuing to invest in the area. Dino's constructed and opened the Phoenix roller coaster, as you've heard, and CAI, as we sit here now, is currently constructing several new attractions that will add to the Coney Island skyline and expand the types of rides and amenities visitors can experience. I'm here today to support the extensions for both entities and also support the subtenants who have testified today. CAI and Dino's are founding board members of our organization, and the subtenants here today have all been members of the organization since our inception, supporting the community work we do and aiding our work as a nonprofit in the revitalization and economic development of Coney Island. These extensions, particularly in light of the new Omicron variant, are crucial to the stability of the family-owned businesses. The character of Coney Island and the longevity of these intergenerational businesses is what makes Coney Island so unique. This year, despite the amusement district fully reopening, business was down on average 25 to 35% from 2019. Many of the businesses who will benefit from this extension only receive relief from PPP. The rules and stipulations for the other programs did not cover them. Though we hope for a brighter future, we know nothing is for certain and extensions are much
Time
needed.
expired.
I thank Councilman Traeger and EDC.
Thank you so much for your testimony.
We will now try to hear from Michael Serrell. Michael Serrell to speak next.
Time starts now.
Michael Serrell, I can see you in the list of speakers. If you can hear me, please accept the unmute request in order to begin your testimony. I'll take this opportunity to announce that written testimony can be submitted by email to landusetestimony@council.nyc.gov. If for some reason we're unable to take your testimony today, landusetestimony@council.nyc.gov.
Or I think we should proceed to the next panel.
As it happens, that was the last speaker on this panel, Mr. Chair. So you could excuse this panel and we can see if there's anybody else left. If there are any other members of the public who wish to testify on the Coney Island Special Process Agreement Amendment, please press the raise hand button now. Please do not use the raise hand button unless you are wishing to testify on the Coney Island Special Process Agreement Amendment. The meeting will briefly stand at ease while we check for any other members. Okay, Mr. Chair, not seeing any hands for new testimony. Once again, this is for anyone who has not already testified. And with that, Chair Moya, I see no other members of the public who wish to testify on this item.
Okay, thank you. There being no members of the public who wish to testify on the preconsidered LU item for the proposed third amendment of the special process agreement related to the Coney Island Amusement Park project plan, the public hearing is now closed and this item is laid over. I now open the public hearing on the preconsidered LU item for the one Wyeth Avenue Industrial Business Incentive Area proposal, which includes a proposed zoning text amendment under the ULURP number N210273ZRK, and which relates to property in Council Member Levin's district in Brooklyn. Once again, if you wish to testify on this item, please visit the Council's website to register. That link is at the www.council.nyc.gov/land use. And you may also submit written testimony by emailing it to landusetestimony@council.nyc.gov. And now, Council, if you could please call up the first panel for this item.
First, the applicant panel for this item will include, once again, Richard Lobel and Fayan Beitan, and also available for a question and answer, we'll have Nick Liberis, Jeremy Zadima, Kevin Williams, and Lewis Handler. I'll ask all panelists now to raise your right hands, please. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this subcommittee in an answer to all council member questions? Thank you.
You may begin, Richard.
Time starts
Chair
now.
Moya. Thank you, Chair Moya. Council members, good morning. Richard Lobel from Sheldon Lobel. I will be presenting the land use matters to be considered today, and we'll be joined by Nick Liberis, who will be discussing the architectural aspects of the proposal. If you can load this slide presentation, please. So we're here today to discuss the One Wythe Avenue IBA special permit and text amendment. Next slide. This is to establish an industrial business incentive area on 3 lots in Williamsburg. So the text amendment is to provide for the extension of that IBIA. And then there's a special permit which allows for 3 aspects. The first is to increase the floor area ratio to permit light industrial and commercial uses. The second, to permit an adjustment in the underlying height and setback regulations. And the third, to modify accessory off-street parking requirements and loading berth requirements. Again, the IBIA, as has been established through the original text amendment and 3 prior applications, including 103 North 13th, most recently, simply allows for as-of-right floor area in the form of 4.8 of community facility floor area in the subject M12 district to be used instead for incentive uses, industrial uses, business uses, to allow for more walk-to-work opportunities and increase job numbers in this area. Next slide. So here you can see there's a tax map with the 3 sites in question. The lot area amounts to roughly 16,820 square feet, which, given the floor area ratio, would allow for a roughly 80,000 square foot building. Nick will run through the relative square footages as he goes through his presentation. But we do note that there will be 13,000 square feet of industrial uses, which will be located on the ground floor of the proposed building. Next slide. So the area map here indicates what you would expect from this area, which is a heavy usage with regards to manufacturing and commercial uses. So this lot itself and this development site was part of the original IBIA prior to the time when it was reduced, and now applicants seeking the special permit are required to come in and ask for this text amendment to expand it over the area. But this was one of the original blocks that was included in the IBIA. You can see, of course, that M11 and M12 use zoning districts abound in the area. Particularly here, the 3 streets around the property give excellent access to the site and make it particularly appropriate for the uses and bulk that is proposed here. Next slide. So the next slide demonstrates existing uses at the site. This is, as is typical in the M11, given the low FAR and high parking requirements, results in primarily 1-story manufacturing and industrial type buildings. Next slide. And given that there are also some taller buildings in the area, of course, the William Vale Hotel can be seen several blocks away. And if you want to just page through the remainder of the pictures and come to the first map after the pictures, you'll see the proposal with regards to the special district and the expansion of the IBIA. Of course, there are 3 sites that are currently included in the IBIA. Again, 103 North 13th to the south being the most recently added. And now, as you can see, the amended and proposed map, the IBIA would be mapped over the 3 lots that are included in this application. With that, I think if you want to forward 2 slides to the proposed project, these are the square footages, and after that, I'm going to defer over to Nick. So the building again would be an 80,000 roughly square foot building with 33,000 square feet of permitted uses in the cellar, 2nd and 4th floors, 13,000 square feet roughly of required industrial uses on the ground floor, and 33,600 square feet roughly of incentive uses on floors 5 through 8. The resulting building would be 110 feet tall and 8 stories, similar to other applications approved pursuant to the IBIA, with one loading berth and a reduction to no parking spaces. And as we go to the next slide, which has zoning calculations, and I turn this over to Nick, I would merely note that this is an application which has received tremendous support, including from Evergreen, which has signed a letter and submitted that into the record that indicates that they are supportive of the application, particularly in light of the high quality industrial space, which will be on the ground floor here. With that, I would defer to Nick.
Thank you, Rich. Nick Laberis with Arcamara. As Rich said, we've received overwhelming support from the community board and from local light manufacturing groups. And the basis of this is having this the light manufacturing space on the ground floor. We have about 13,500 square feet of very high quality light manufacturing space on the ground floor. We meet all of the criteria that DCP set forth for this space. Has high ceilings. It has excellent access to loading. And what makes this unique is that in this area, there's been a lot of talk of keeping the characteristic manufacturing, but it's often relegated to the second floor or higher. And in this case, we've kept it on the ground floor. We had like enlightened ownership and lots of community support that made this possible. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. You can see here that the access to this is off of all 3 streets that the building fronts off of. You have Banker Street to the north, which is the typically more traffic street by trucks. Acme is the next block to the northwest. North 15th Street is to the south, and we've been hearing a lot recently about the community asking for this to be turned into a pedestrian-only promenade that would lead from the inlet into the park all the way to the east. And then we have Wythe Avenue that the shortest frontage faces. So this is light manufacturing space, which will be very easily accessed from the street. It'll be very visible to the public. And one other thing that this implicates is because of this, and also because of the size of the site and the shape of the site, we're unable to come up with a good way to provide parking. This is something that we've received backing for from DCP and also the community. It's quite clear that it's impossible to have parking really access this site in any way that wouldn't really chop up this first floor. Next slide, please. So these are typical floors coming up. If you could just please cycle through these quickly. This is the cellar floor. You know, these are the typical floors at the base. Then we have the upper office floors. We have very high quality office space. We have light coming in from, you know, all three sides, and we have a very good window to office floor depth ratio. There's been a lot of consideration to the quality of this office space and how it's been set up around the core. You can see here, as Rich described, you know, the maximum height is 110 feet. We have a setback at the 8th floor, which hosts a roof terrace, and there's a significant roof terrace at the 4th floor. Next slide, please. These building axos show the general massing of the building. There's been terraces provided at multiple floors that are set up to service various office tenants and fourth floor tenants. The 4th floor has been contemplated to be any type of as of right use. We have 33,500 about square feet of as of right uses, and then we have 33,500 square feet of these so-called incentive uses, which are uses that are permitted as of right, but have then been kind of called down. So it's mainly office space that's permitted in that incentive use upper bit. Next slide, please. This was the presentation that we gave to the community board, which showed that there's sufficient parking in this area to support the request for us to reduce parking to 0. So you can see that there are in excess of 15 properties within a few block radius that have excess capacity This is something that we've been keeping very close track of. First starting with that other special permit project that we had approved a few years back, 103 North 13th, and then with other ones coming up. We are very keen, to support a as like reduced traffic, a scheme as we can with the support of city planning and the community, but we always have to be mindful, of making sure that we meet the criteria of the zoning as it's currently written for parking to the best of our ability. So this shows that, even though we don't quite do it, there is enough there to provide what the site actually, requires based on the uses on site. Next slide, please. And you can see here, this is I think one of the most appealing views of the building. This is coming from the east looking west. On the west side, you have 15th Street, which is leading towards the future Bushwick Inlet Park. On the right side, you have Banker, and we've taken great pains to make sure that there's a graceful massing as this thing steps back from this very acute corner. And what's been created is some very nice public space also at the end, and we anticipate with the open streets program and also future support from the city that as this neighborhood changes, that this will only serve to further enhance the pedestrian aspect of this area, which is so characteristic of it. And with that, my presentation concludes. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. And as an applicant team, we also wanted to take the opportunity, given that this may be the last special permit considered during the current council term, to thank Councilmember Levin for his involvement, both in the creation and the opportunities to sustain this special permit, which has been a boon to the area, and which, as an applicant, it's been a pleasure to work with the community board on these applications and really bring job growth and walk to work opportunities to this area. So with that, we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Just one quick question here before I turn it over to Councilmember Levin. Within an industrial business incentive area, a special permit to allow an increase in the FAR from 2.0 to 4.8 requires that the building provide a minimum of 0.8 FAR required industrial uses. What plans are proposed for this required use, and how many manufacturing jobs can we expect to be created by this development?
Nick, can you talk a little bit about the proposed users, given your familiarity with the area and those questions?
Yeah, sure. So we have about 14,000 square feet that's been provided. The way that it's been set up on this ground floor, it's anticipated that it could be demised into several smaller spaces, and it's also set up because of the office floor plate up above, with a very wide spacing to the columns in a way which would also support just a single user that would want a big wide open space. So in this area, typically there's uses ranging from alcohol manufacturing. There's several brewers in this area, all the way down to people that that make custom watches, custom jewelry. There's fabric making, print making, furniture making. There's all sorts of smaller types of uses that inhabit spaces all over the neighborhood up into Greenpoint. So the Greenpoint Manufacturing Center, 67 West Street, 42 West Street. There's a couple of other addresses that are now eluding me, but there's 5 or 6 very significant warehouse type spaces that now house these uses. And this is anecdotal. We've always had we've had offices in these spaces. And during COVID, we left for about 1.5 years, and when we came back, I mean, everything had been rented out almost immediately, going back to to late 2020. So there's a tremendous demand, and there's a shortfall of these spaces, and we can't know who is going to be the person or the person signing into the spaces, but we could definitely vouch for the quantity of a demand for such spaces, and as to who it could be, I really can't comment, but I'm sure that if you go and visit in the next year, it'll be fully occupied. or I guess after it's been built, sorry, not the next year, because it's going to take a little bit of time to build it.
Okay, thank you,
Sure.
Nick. That's it for me with questions. I now want to turn it over to Councilmember Levin for questions.
Time starts now.
Do we have Councilmember Levin still on?
I see Councilmember Levin is logged in. I just can't confirm that I can't see his video.
Let me. All right, I just reached out to Councilmember Levin. I'm going to give him about a minute to see if he responds. If not, we're going to have to move on to the next panel. Okay, I've not gotten a confirmation back from Councilmember Levin. So do we have any council members that have any questions for this panel?
No, Chair, I see no other members with questions for the panel.
Okay, there being no further questions, the applicant panel is excused.
Sorry about that, Chair. Can you hear me okay?
There we go, Steve.
Okay, sorry about that. I had to step out for a second. No, I want to thank this application for engaging with us. I wanted to ask about your willingness to commit to option 1 as part of MIH.
Oh, Councilmember, this is the
other
application.
Got it. Okay. Okay. This is. I'm okay. I think with questions on this item. I do have questions on the other item.
Okay. Thank you very much, Councilmember Levin. Seeing that there are no other members who have any questions for this panel is now excused. And Council, do we have any members of the public who wish to testify on this item?
Any members of the public wishing to testify on the One Wyeth Avenue IBIA proposal are asked to please press the raise hand button now. Mr. Chair, the meeting will briefly stand at ease while we just confirm. Okay, Chair Moy, I see no members of the public who wish to testify on this item.
Okay, there being no members of the public who wish to testify on the preconsidered LU items for the One Wyeth Avenue IBIA proposal under ULURP number N210273 ZRK. The public hearing is now closed and the item is laid over. Go to the next item. Okay. I now open the public hearing on 2 preconsidered LU items under C210166 ZMK and N210167 ZRK for the 79 Key Street rezoning, requesting a zoning map and zoning text amendment relating to property in Councilmember Levin's district in Brooklyn. Once again, anyone wishing to testify on this item, if you have not already done so, you must register online, and you may do that now by visiting the council's website. Once again, at council.nyc.gov/land use. Council, if you could, please call up the first panel for this item.
The applicant panel for this item will include Richard Lobel, Fayon Beitan. Available for a question and answer will be Kevin Williams, Steve Wagoda, and Harry Einhorn. For those of you who don't already remain under oath, please raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give to the subcommittee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and that you will answer all council member questions truthfully? Thank you.
You may begin, Richard, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Chair Moya. Council members, good morning. Richard Lobel of Sheldon Lobel PC. For the application at 79 Key Street, this is for a proposed rezoning. If you can load the slide presentation, please. I'm also hoping at the end of the presentation that Councilmember Levin can finally answer whether it is Key, K, or Quay, because Merriam-Webster dictionary allows for all three pronunciations. So good morning again. We're here for the 79 Key Street rezoning. Next slide. The rezoning would rezone a current M12 R6A M8 special mixed use district, as was rezoned in the Greenpoint Williamsburg rezoning, to an M14 R7D district. What this would allow for would be the development of a 9-story, approximately 92,000 square foot building, roughly 5.58 FAR, with 86 dwelling units, and then depending on the level of affordability, 22 under option 1 or 26 under option 2 affordable units. The zoning map amendment application consists of two aspects. The first would be the zoning map amendment change, the zoning change to the M14 R7D, and the second being a text amendment to not only amend the special district text under MX8, but also to, of course, provide for mandatory inclusionary housing on the site. Next slide. So as you can see here, this is a zoning map. Again, the 2005 Greenpoint Williamsburg rezoning created many of the mixed use districts in this area, including at the subject site. Next slide. So you can see here that the M12 R6A currently covers the property, with R6B to the east and R6 and R8 districts to the west. Next slide. The next slide is the tax map, which shows with greater specificity what is proposed at the site. This is an M14 R7D. Why is this appropriate at the site? Particularly here because you've got existing R6B and R6A districts, particularly R6B districts to the east, and you have R8 and R6 districts to the west, which is more easily seen on the next slide, which have largely resulted on the west in building heights ranging from 14 to 33 stories. So particularly here, the opportunity to put an R7D mixed use district to allow for a 9-story building allows for appropriate transition from the taller buildings to the west to the smaller and shorter buildings to the east. In addition, Key Street here operates as a corridor towards the waterfront, and the opportunity to put new development here and to enliven this corner with some retail is something which is seen as valuable to the surrounding area. The site itself, as you can see in red, is roughly 16,500 square feet. 2 other lots would be partially included in this proposed rezoning. Next slide. So the next slide demonstrates the actual zoning change map. You can see on the left, the existing M12 R6A, and on the right, the change in the dotted portion for the M14 R7D. We note that R6A, depending on the affordability and inclusionary housing, can result in floor area ratios of 3 to 3.6. So the transition here to an R7D is seen as particularly appropriate, as has been confirmed in the approvals of the Community Board, the Brooklyn Borough President, and City Planning Commission. We further note that the Community Board here did issue a unanimous recommendation. We were happy and proud to receive that. Next slide. So here you see photos of the site and the surrounding area. Again, the site has remained largely underdeveloped with 1 to 3 story buildings, despite the rezoning in 2005 to the R6A district. Generally commercial uses at the property. Next slide. And resulting in warehouse type development. I think if you want to fast forward through this pictures, we can get to the first slide demonstrating the building plans. I would briefly run through those building plans. So you have in front of you a 9-story building, which sets back after the 7th story. Next slide. This slide includes zoning calculations. Primarily of note here is that the bedroom mix results in 13 studios, 31 one-bedrooms, 29 two-bedrooms, and 13 three-bedrooms. One of the things that the R7D permits here is to allow for a wider floor plate and more floor area to flesh out these units so that we're able to bring larger units to the community. This is something that was seen as a huge benefit to allow for a large number of 3 bedrooms as well as 2 bedrooms. And importantly, pursuant to mandatory inclusionary housing, the units in the building generally will mirror the inclusionary units, such that the inclusionary units will include the same mix of 1, 2s, and 3s. So this is actually the opportunity to allow for affordability and affordability at larger bedroom sizes, which is one of the goals of the program. Next slide. The next slide merely shows an elevation demonstrating the various building levels at the site, ranging from 6 to 9 stories. Next slide. This slide demonstrates the parking at the site, resulting in 31 below grade parking spaces. Next slide. There's the retail on the ground floor, 10,000 square feet of new retail space and a residential lobby. And then if you would page through the remainder of the slides, this simply shows the unit layouts per floor, the second through 6th floor, and then the setback 7th and 8th stories. We also include copies in the next 2 slides of the building elevations, both from the south as well as the west. And finally, the building section, which shows the commercial on the ground floor, followed by the residential uses on floors 2 through 9 above. There you go. So with that, if you just want to page through the last 3 slides, this is just a massing of the building, particularly, it's prevalent that there is larger building types to the west of the site. And the result there, thank you for doing that. Didn't need to go too fast. And you can see the larger buildings to the west of West Street. And then, as you page through to the end, a rendering which demonstrates the proposal and the massing as it currently exists. With that, the applicant team is happy to answer any questions.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for your testimony. I'm going to turn it over for questions now to Councilmember Levin.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chair. Just to add a question, I'm sorry about the mix-up. By the way, I say Quay Street.
Okay.
I think that's what most green pointers say, but I'm pretty sure it's a small street, so it doesn't get a lot of foot traffic.
I think every time we say it wrong, so we're happy to have you.
So on the MIH option, the applicant willing to commit to option 1?
Yeah, we discussed that with Mr. Einhorn, and obviously it's the prerogative of the council member here. We understand that there's a unity and interest in the opportunity to bring the community some real affordability. So we are happy to acquiesce and understand that this will be modified.
Okay. And then in terms of like sustainability measures at this development site, can you speak to that a little bit?
Sure. I'd actually ask if Steve Wygoda, who's the project architect, is standing by. Steve, are you able to talk about sustainability at the site?
Yeah, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not on video. I apologize. But we're looking to we're looking at the solar energy, the green roof, the exterior wall functions. We put some green planting along the street. And we're trying to use some materials that are environmentally sustainable, but so we're gonna come in once we begin the design of the building. We commit to doing all of those sustainability factors in our design. So the answer is yes. We We also like the sustainability of the terraces that have the wonderful view towards the river, and that has sort of a, in my interpretation of sustainability, that means that those families will stay there for a while. It'll be a really cool place to live. So we sustain the families, and we provide, I think 26 is what, but it depends which option we go with. So just to keep it short, that's our approach to the sustainability aspect.
Okay, and the applicant would be willing to make some commitments that we can talk about after this hearing to memorialize the commitments on sustainability measures.
Sure, council member, we're happy to discuss that, as we go forward and to do so to your satisfaction.
Okay. Rich, I should have asked that question as well to the previous applicant, but understanding that hearing is closed, we can have that conversation post-hearing.
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Rich,
thank you very much, Chair.
Sorry, Rich, just for the record, Richard, it's Steve.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. I just want to add, the parking is above grade, and just because you're recording it, because we're in a very high water table. And Rich, I think you might have said below grade.
Sure, apologies.
No problem.
Okay. And obviously, I'm in favor of as minimal parking as possible. If you were able to do no parking, I would be in favor of that. That's something that we could talk about after as well. Okay, it seems that I am currently the acting chair. Does anyone else have any questions on this item? Okay. Seeing none,
Chair,
thank you.
yes,
Oh, go ahead.
Correct. No, I don't see any members with questions.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Arthur. Okay. On that note, we will let the applicant go. Thank you very much for your presentation, and look forward to working with you over the next week or so to see if we can get both of these projects to an approval stage. I think that they bring both projects real benefit to the neighborhood, and have a minimal any negative effects are mitigated and minimal in my opinion at this point. So just want to work through some of the details as we move forward.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Thank you. Okay. So seeing no other members that are wish to ask questions, I will ask if there are any members of the public to testify on this item.
Chair Levin, I'm going to take this moment to just make a quick technical announcement for anyone who may be logged in and wishing to testify as a public speaker. We ask that you register online at the council's website before you do so. And with that, we have no advanced registrations, but we'll ask now that if anyone would like to testify as a public witness on this item, to please use the raise hand button now. Okay, Chair, it appears that we have no members of the public who wish to testify on this item. Oh, sorry. Just to make sure, for anyone wishing to testify and has not already registered and is here by phone, you can use the raise hand button by pressing *9. *9 on your keypad of a telephone if you intend to testify on this item. All right, Chair, thank you. I see no members of the public who wish to testify on this item.
Okay, thank you very much, Council.
I will recommend that you close the hearing on page 15.
Yes, I'm sorry, I'm looking for the notes here. I don't have it in page format, so if you'll bear with me here. Okay. Sorry, Arthur, I'm
That's okay.
having.
I'm sending you a quick statement on this now.
Okay.
Just with the
Oh, I
ULIP
see.
numbers.
Got it. Okay. Okay. Page 15.
Middle of page 15, closing by announcing the ULIP numbers.
Okay. I'm sorry. There being no members of the public who wish to testify on preconsidered LU items for 79 Quay Street, rezoning proposal under ULIP numbers C210166ZMK and N210167ZRK. The public hearing is now closed and the items are laid over.
And now we will be on page 21
to
continue.
Okay. I'm now opening the public hearing on LU numbers 932 through 936 related to a number of land use actions related to the River Ring proposal in my district in Brooklyn, Councilmember 11 district in Brooklyn, which also include a zoning text amendment and zoning map amendment. I'll note that in conjunction with those related preconsidered zoning map and text amendments, the subcommittee held a public hearing on November 18th. And took comprehensive testimony concerning the anticipated development under the proposal in its entirety, that is pursuant to all 8 related actions. At this time, I'll ask council whether we have any members of the public signed up to testify today on this item.
Yes, Chair, I believe that we did have one advance registration for this item. If we have Renzo Ramirez will be the, at this moment, the lone speaker on this item, Renzo Ramirez, to testify on the River Ring items. All right, Chair. I have been informed that Renzo Ramirez did cancel registration. So with that, if there are any other members of the public who wish to testify on the River Ring items, we ask that you use the raise hand button now. All right, Mr. Chair, with that, there are, I see no members of the public who wish to testify on this item.
Okay. There being no questions for this panel, or for this panel, the witness panel is not. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
I could direct you to page 24.
Yes, thank you. There being no members of the public who wish to testify on land use numbers 932 through 936 for the River Ring proposal, the public hearing is now closed and the items are laid over.
And now we're on to the very next item, the Archer Avenue.
Great. I now open the public hearing on land use number 938 for 160-05 Archer Avenue proposal, which seeks a zoning text amendment related to property in Councilmember Miller's district in Queens. I remind the viewing public, for anyone wishing to testify in this item, if you have not already done so, you must register online. You may do that now by visiting the council's website at council.nyc.gov/land use, one word, land use. Okay. Council, can you please call the first panel for this item?
The applicant panel for this item will include Rachel Schall, Land Use Counsel for the applicant, and Hugo Bolan for the applicant. I'll ask the
Sorry.
panelists now to,
I think we have Harley Braun instead of Hugo Cortland. I apologize.
okay. Harley Brown, I'll ask both panelists to please raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before the subcommittee and in answer to all council member questions?
Yes.
Thank you.
Starting time.
If I could please have our slides. Thank you. Good just afternoon. My name is Rachel Skall and I'm an associate at Greenberg Traurig. We represent Archer One LLC in this application to allow a curb cut on a currently restricted portion of Archer Avenue. The application has received the support of the borough president as well as unanimous approval of the community board. I am joined today by Harley Braun on behalf of ownership. If I could just get the slides. Sorry. Are we having technical difficulties with the slides? Oh, thank you. Next slide, please. Sorry. Thank you. Archer One LLC owns 160-05 Archer Avenue, located at the northeast corner of Archer Avenue and 160th Street, just north of the above ground LIRR tracks in the special downtown Jamaica district. Next slide, please. The site is currently being developed with an as-of-right 22-story building that will contain 315 dwelling units, as well as ground floor and cellar retail or medical use. Construction is about 75% complete, and we expect people to begin moving into the building in March 2022. Next slide, please. We would like to provide a permitted, not required loading berth for residents moving in and out of the building, as well as the retail or medical tenant as needed. The new building does not have space for a loading berth curb cut on 160th Street because the curb cut cannot be located within 50 feet of the intersection, and the balance of the 160th Street frontage is occupied by the new building's residential parking and residential lobby. Therefore, we are seeking a text amendment to create an authorization that would allow the City Planning Commission to authorize curb cuts on restricted streets where a zoning lot has more than one street frontage in the special downtown Jamaica district. We are simultaneously applying for this authorization and are proposing this 14-foot wide curb cut on Archer Avenue. Next slide, please. The proposed authorization requires that we meet the findings shown here related to traffic safety and flow and pedestrian safety. With regard to findings 1, 2, and 4, the proposed curb cut would not be hazardous to traffic safety. It is expected to draw minimal traffic and its use would be pre-scheduled with a flagman present during daytime use. As a result of conversations with the community board and council member Miller, we have agreed that the loading berth would not be used during AM rush hour or PM rush hour, and that any use of the loading berth by a retail tenant would take place overnight. The proposed curb cut would prevent curbside pickups and drop-offs by moving vans or trucks and by giving them an off-street place to pull off. With regard to finding 3, the loading berth associated with the curb cut would prevent trucks from coming to the site and blocking the sidewalk or idling curbside or double parking, and the proposed flagman would ensure pedestrian safety. With regard to finding 5, the proposed curb cut will not be inconsistent with the character of the existing streetscape. The portion of the site's Archer Avenue frontage that was occupied by curb cuts prior to the beginning of construction would be reduced from what was previously there. And neighboring blocks also feature curb cuts on Archer Avenue. And with that, Harley and I are happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm bringing up. I don't have any questions on this item. I'm sorry, I'm just bringing up the. Do any of the other members of the subcommittee have any questions on this item? If you have questions, please use the raise hand function.
see no members with hands raised for questions.
Okay. There being no questions, the applicant panel is excused. Council, are there any members of the public who wish to testify on 160-05 Archer Avenue proposal?
Chair, we have no advanced registrations, but we'll ask now if anyone from the public does intend to testify on the Archer Avenue proposal to please use the raise hand button now. All right, it appears, Chair Levin, that we have no members of the public who wish to testify on this item.
Okay. There being no members of the public who wish to testify on 160-05 Archer Avenue proposal, please, which is LU 938, 160-05 Archer Avenue. The public hearing is now closed and the item is laid over. We'll next turn to Beach 79th Street self-storage. I'm now opening the public hearing on LU 937 for the Beach 79th Street self-storage proposal, which seeks a zoning map amendment related to property in Councilmember Brooks Powers' district in Queens. For anyone wishing to testify on this item, if you have not already done so, you must register online, and you may do that now by visiting the council's website at council.nyc.gov/land use, one word, land use. Council, would you please call the first panel for this item?
The applicant panel for this item will include, again, Rachel Scull, Land Use Counsel for the applicant, and Uri Kaufman for the applicant. Panelists, please, or I guess Ms. Scull, you remain under oath. Please raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before the subcommittee and in answer to all council member questions?
Yes. If I could please get the slides for this one, thank you. Hello again, my name is Rachel Scull and I'm an associate at Greenberg Charter. We represent the applicant 79 Arvern Development LLC, owner of an approximately 107,500 square foot development site at block 16100, lots 14, 18, and 20 on the north side of Rockaway Freeway at the terminus of Beach 79th Street. I am joined today by Uri Kaufman on behalf of ownership. Our client purchased this property in January 2018 and planned to convert an existing 34,500 square foot building on the site to self-storage and to construct a new approximately 73,000 square foot building on a vacant portion of the site. Instead, we are pursuing the proposed rezoning, which would increase the FAR available on the site from 1 to 2. Next slide, please. This would allow the existing building, housing 7 industrial tenants with approximately 55 employees, to remain. See the industrial building here. Next slide, please. And a new approximately 146,000 square foot self-storage building to be constructed on a vacant portion of the site, seen here. Next slide, please. The proposed development site is located on the north side of Rockaway Freeway and the above ground subway tracks at the terminus of Beach 79th Street. Next slide, please. It fronts on Rockaway Freeway and backs onto Barbados Basin and is adjacent to Brandreth Creek to the west. Next slide, please. The site surrounding area is largely industrial, and residential uses to the south are cut off from the site by the above ground subway tracks and vacant parcels. Next slide, please. The proposed rezoning would rezone a portion of an existing M11 district to an M12 district. Next slide, please. Thank you. It would overlap with portions of city-owned property that make up the adjacent street and sidewalk and Brandreth Creek. Approximately 16% of the rezoning area is made up of city-owned land, 2% by another private party, and 82% is applicant-owned. Next slide, please. The new building, except entrances, would be raised above flood hazard levels, and its entrances would be dry flood-proofed. Parking would be on the ground level beneath the occupiable portions of the building. The building would be approximately 90 feet tall from grade It would have 6 floors of self-storage units containing approximately 950 climate-controlled storage units of various sizes. Next slide, please. We will also be repaving the property's drive lane with permeable pavers, planting a wetlands mitigation area adjacent to Barbados Basin pursuant to a DEC wetlands permit, adding landscaping at the front of the site, and adding picnic tables adjacent to the wetlands area that would be open to the public as well as the existing industrial tenants. Pursuant to DEC's voluntary brownfields program, we have a plan in place to clean up hazardous materials at the development site that have resulted from its previous more than 100 years of industrial use. Without the proposed rezoning, next slide, please. Without the proposed rezoning, we could have a total of 107,500 square feet of self-storage on the site. The proposed rezoning represents an increase of approximately 38,500 square feet of self-storage on the site and would allow us to keep the existing industrial uses. Next slide, please. The proposed rezoning area makes up a discrete area separated from low-density residential areas and more pedestrian-focused streets, allowing the area to support higher density industrial development without disturbing nearby uses. The uses immediately surrounding the proposed rezoning area are industrial in nature and have been since before adoption of the 1961 zoning resolution. We are excited to be a part of the Rockaways community and hope to be a positive addition. To that end, my client has set forth commitments in a letter to Councilmember Brooks Powers, including to conduct a traffic study at the site once the proposed storage facility is open and to fund the installation of a traffic light if needed. The letter also outlines goals for local hiring, both for construction jobs and permanent jobs. Now I will turn it over to Uri Kaufman to provide a little bit more information about the demand for self-storage in the area.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, my name is Uri Kaufman. I grew up in Queens. I now live about 15 minutes away from the site. I've been a real estate developer for almost 30 years. I've built self-storage facilities in other parts of our state and elsewhere. We bought the site in January 2018 with the idea of turning it into a self-storage facility because the Rockaways are not so much lacking in storage, it's basically non-existent. It's astonishing how there's almost none out there at all. We did a study that showed there's about 700,000 feet of unmet demand. We expect this facility to serve people in the local community, particularly people with smaller homes, people in affordable housing apartments. It's anyone in some sort of transition in their lives, people moving, people who are divorced, soldiers who are mustering abroad. And then it's most importantly for small businessmen. Every electrician, every plumber, every gardener, every sheetrock hanger, every artisan, artist, anyone with an Amazon business, an Etsy business, anyone who needs micro warehousing. There are many, many such people. There's literally nothing for these people right now. They have to travel quite a distance to get those vital services. The storage facility itself will not create a lot of direct jobs. Actually, our industrial complex there is a pretty important local job creator. However, to the extent that the storage facility will create jobs, and it will, we will reach out to the local community, particularly people who can walk to work, which there'd be quite a few of those. In fact, interestingly enough, while I was waiting for my turn to testify, I got a call from a local person asking for a job there, and I told him to please send me his resume. And we will certainly give him every consideration. He's a Mr. Hunt. We're very excited to be part of this project. As I said, I only live about 15 minutes away. I grew up in Queens myself, so it's great to do a really good project like this in my own backyard. And thank you very much.
Thank you. We're happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. And you said that, I just want to confirm that you were willing to do a traffic monitoring program and make additional improvements to the intersection that are needed by DOT once the project is built?
Sure. So we are planning to, within 6 months of the storage facility opening, we would go back out and restudy the traffic conditions to see whether our study shows a need to reopen that intersection there and install a traffic light, or if DOT were to independently come to the conclusion that that intersection should be reopened and we needed to install a traffic light, we would still fund the purchase of the traffic light and the installation.
Okay, so I'm just looking at it's a very little infrastructure. I'm just looking on Google Maps right now, and then that intersection, very little infrastructure there. Are there other improvements that that have been discussed other than like a traffic light? Any other type of like stormwater mitigation, if there's any flooding mitigation or anything like that?
Sure. So as part of our DEC application, we're required to plant a 50-foot wide wetlands area. That area is designed to provide that type of stormwater mitigation. It will be fully replanted with native plantings. The idea is that it will allow for tides to come in. It will allow for absorption of groundwater. We're also replacing any paving in the drive lane right now with permeable pavers, which should also help with stormwater.
Okay. No, I appreciate it very much. I think that's all the questions that I have. Do any other members of the subcommittee have questions for this applicant?
Chair, I see no members with questions.
Okay. Okay, there being no questions, the panel is excused. Council, are there any members of the public who wish to testify on Beach 79th Street self-storage proposal?
No, Chair, we have no advanced registrations, but we'll ask at this time whether any members of the public who do wish to testify on this item are asked to please use the raise hand button now. All right, Chair Levin, I see no members of the public wishing to testify on this item.
Okay, there being no members of the public who wish to testify on LU 937 for the Beach 79th Street self-storage proposal, the public hearing is now closed and the item is laid over. Council, is this next item 45-20 83rd Street that's already been heard this morning?
That's right. That's right.
Okay. Okay, we will be skipping ahead then to 31st Street and Hoyt Avenue. I now open the public hearing on two pre-considered LU items for the 31st Street and Hoyt Avenue rezoning proposal, which seeks a zoning map and zoning text amendment under ULURPs numbers C210200ZMQ and N210201ZRQ and related property in Councilmember Tiffany Caban's district in Queens. I will remind the viewing public, for anyone wishing to testify on this item, if you have not already done so, you must register online, and you may do that now by visiting the council's website at council.nyc.gov/land use. And I want to turn it over to Councilmember Caban for opening statement.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Acting Chair Levin and the members of the committee. This is literally my first full day on the job. And so I also want to extend thanks to the Land Use Division, who gave me a really incredible briefing yesterday. And I want to be upfront and name that I'm coming in at the end of this process. Like I feel like I'm not coming in at the 9th inning, I'm coming in at the last out of the 9th inning. I know that this is a project that's been going on for years, that my predecessor, former council member Constantinides, was very engaged on. I'm working as quickly as I can to get up to speed and continue to learn. And I do just want to very briefly name a few things that I care about, things like deeper affordability, assessing displacement risk, working in partnership with both community and labor so that the folks that are most directly impacted are ideating and articulating the things that we want and need. So we're developing to the needs of our community and the city as a whole. And so I'm looking forward to hearing from folks in the community on this project. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Councilmember Caban. Council, would you please call the first panel for this item?
The applicant panel for this item will include Frank St. Jacques, Land Use Counsel for the applicant. St. Jacques, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before the subcommittee and in answer to all council member questions?
I do.
Thank you.
Starting time.
Thank you. Could you please load the presentation? Good morning, Acting Chair Levin, Councilmember Caban, and committee members. I have a brief presentation, and then I'm happy to answer any questions. And I'll also just say at the outset, Councilmember Kaban, we recognize that you're just coming into this project, but we welcome your input and we look forward to working with you as we move towards the conclusion of ULURP. Next slide, please. This slide provides an overview of the rezoning. The proposed zoning map and text amendments will promote transit-oriented mixed-use development in Astoria at 3 underutilized sites on the 31st Street corridor on wide streets with excellent access to mass transit and open space. The project vision is to revitalize this section of 31st Street near the recently renovated Astoria Boulevard station with significant community benefits, including new housing, with permanently income restricted units under MIH option 1 or mandatory inclusionary housing option 1, a partnership with local nonprofit HANIC to provide senior and youth programming in 2 of the buildings, and a daycare and local retail along with about 193 associated jobs. Next slide, please. The 3 development sites and surrounding context are shown in this aerial view. The rezoning area, again, is highly transit-oriented with access to the Astoria Boulevard station and several bus lines, and the Ditmars Boulevard station is also a few blocks to the north. The elevated railway above 31st Street dominates the streetscape, and there's currently very little active ground floor use on this portion of 31st Street, despite being right next to the train station and Hoyt Playground, where you would expect to find this type of local retail. This results in an uninviting and dark pedestrian experience and is in contrast to other portions of 31st Street and other similar corridors through Astoria. Development Site 1 is the southernmost site. It's currently a 1-story restaurant building with a surface parking lot. Development Site 2 is currently a large retail store with a blank street wall and surface parking lot. And the northernmost site, Development Site 3, was formerly industrial buildings. Next slide, please. In the next few slides, I'll go over the project details. Again, starting with the southernmost site, in these photographs of Development Site 1, you can see the elevated rail above 31st Street and the entrance to the Astoria Boulevard station. Development Site 1 is located at the northeastern corner of the intersection of 31st Street and Astoria Boulevard North. It's an approximately 10,000 square foot flag-shaped corner lot. Next slide, please. The proposed development on Development Site 1 is an 11-story mixed-use building with 51 dwelling units, including 13 income-restricted units under MIH Option 1. It also contains about 10,784 square feet of commercial floor area on the first and second floors and 3,064 square feet of community facility floor area intended for a daycare on the second floor. About 63% of the units are 2- and 3-bedroom family-sized units, and local retail would activate the streetscape, as you can see on the rendering on the right-hand side of the screen. Next slide, please. Just to the north across 24th Road is Development Site 2. In these photographs, you can see the long blank street wall for the Staples retail store and fenced surface parking. Development Site 2 is the largest of the 3 sites at about 29,638 square feet. Next slide, please. The proposed development on Development Site 2 is a 12-story mixed-use building with 161 units, including 40 income-restricted units. It also contains 14,454 square feet of commercial floor area and 3,962 square feet of community facility floor area intended for HANIC to provide senior programming on the first floor. Just over half of the units are 2- and 3-bedroom family units. Again, here local retail uses will activate the streetscape and improve the pedestrian experience along this portion of 31st Street. Next slide, please. Finally, the northernmost site is Development Site 3, just north of 24th Avenue. It's a 13,503 square foot rectangular lot. Next slide, please. And so finally, the proposed development on Development Site 3 is an 11-story mixed-use building with 63 units, 16 of which would be permanently income restricted under MIH Option 1. It also contains 7,043 square feet of commercial floor area for ground floor local retail. and community facility use on the second and third floors, including about 8,000 square feet of space for HANOC to provide youth programming. And here about 54% of the units are 2 and 3 bedrooms. Next slide, please. So the bulk regulations of the currently mapped C43 zoning district are an important factor in the rationale for the rezoning. The 2010 Astoria rezoning changed the R5 district that had been mapped in 1961 to the current C43 zoning district. Unlike other areas within the Astoria rezoning, the voluntary inclusionary housing program was not made available in this area. We believe this rezoning is an opportunity to refine the zoning to allow more housing at nearly the same bulk envelope that is allowed today under the C43 zoning. This slide provides a comparison between the maximum floor area ratio, or FAR, and the height that is permitted in the current and proposed zoning districts. So on the left-hand side, you see the existing C43 and the proposed C45X and C44 under MIH with a comparison. And as you can see, the rezoning represents an increase of 1.2 FAR from the C43 to the C45X, and an increase of 1.7 FAR from the C43 to the C44. The proposed zoning districts would allow more housing production versus community facility use, and would also require the provision of permanently income restricted units under MIH option 1 with a similar bulk envelope to the current C43. The rezoning would promote a revitalization of this transit-oriented area. Next slide, please. This slide shows a comparison of as-of-right development versus development under the proposed zoning. While the building heights are about the same, the rezoning promotes more housing development and requires, again, that permanently income restricted units be provided under MIH option 1. Next slide, please. So under MIH, mandatory inclusionary housing, or MIH option 1, the requirements for option 1 are a weighted average of 60% AMI. And the breakdown is shown here for all 3 projects combined. Of the 69 permanently income restricted units under MIH option 1, 24 units would be provided at 40% AMI, 25 units at 60% AMI, and 20 units at 80% AMI. And you can see the corresponding rents and income limits in each income band. And I'll just note that according to American Community Survey data, the local census tracts 115 and 125 that the project is within have a median household income of $81,596. The slightly larger area, the Steinway Q72 Neighborhood Tabulation Area, or NTA, has a median household income of $74,388. And the much wider approximate of Community District 1 has a median household income of $63,592. So we believe that these, the affordability under MIH option 1 is appropriate for the site. And we'll also note that this permanently income restricted housing would be provided without any city subsidy. Next slide, please. The proposed project, we have a conservative estimate that it would create about 193 jobs. We've signed an agreement with 32BJ for prevailing wage building service worker jobs. We've submitted a letter to the council regarding the applicant's commitment to local and MWBE hiring. And we're also partnering with local nonprofit Urban Upbound on job placement and workforce development. Next slide, please. And finally, we are partnering with the HANOC to be both the project's MIH administrating agent and to operate community facility space at development sites 2 and 3 with the intention of providing senior programming at development site 2 and in the larger space at development site 3, youth programming. Next slide, please. So that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the applicant. I'll turn it over to Councilmember Caban for questions.
Starting time.
Thank you. I just have a few questions. I understand that there are no significant adverse impacts related to shadows, but there certainly are significant new shadows cast on Hoyt Playground. So just wondering how you respond to concerns that what is a really valuable open space resource in our community, how that could be limited to the public by new shadows your project would cast over the site.
Sure. So I'm just pulling out the negative declaration that was issued by the Department of City Planning with respect to the environmental assessment statement that was produced in connection with the rezoning. You're correct. There is no significant adverse impact from shadows cast by the proposed development. A detailed analysis was performed, which is included within the environmental assessment statement. So while some shadows will be cast on portions of Hoyt Playground, they're not considered to be significant adverse impacts, and then thus the negative declaration was issued. That said, the applicant team has been in contact with the Parks Department and had a meeting with the Borough Commissioner with respect to potential contributions either to maintenance or overall improvement of Hoyt Playground. At this point, the conversation is essentially tabled pending potential approval of the rezoning. And we look forward to continuing those conversations if development moves forward. And we're happy to involve you in those conversations if you so choose to be involved.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. In addition to parks, would you be willing to work with my office to identify a way to make sure that the public can get maximum use from that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we've had pretty productive. I believe we've had two they're video meetings, but two meetings with parks, and we're sort of ready and willing to move forward with those conversations, and are obviously happy to include your office.
Awesome. And how much of the community facility space is being occupied by HANIC for the youth and senior programming?
So in the there's three community facility spaces. There's community facility space in each building. The southernmost site, development site 1, has about 4,000 square feet of community facility space. HANIC is not involved in that space. The intended tenant is a daycare. Moving northward to development site 2, that is about, let me just give you the, just shy of 4,000 square feet. That's the only community facility space in development site 2, and that's intended to be occupied by HANIC to provide senior programming. And then the third development has 2 floors of community facility space. The intention is that about 8,000 square feet of that community facility space would be used by HANIC for youth programming, so either on the 2nd or 3rd floor. And then the other floor is intended to be occupied by medical office uses as the community facility space in that building.
Thank you. And just one more question. The community board mentioned the need for more, and it's obviously a concern of mine as well, more and deeper affordability for this application. Would you be willing to work with my office to increase the number of affordable units within these projects?
We're happy to have that conversation. As we noted, we're working with MIH option 1, but we're happy to sit down and figure out what we can do with respect to affordability with your office.
Thank you for taking my questions.
Absolutely, thank you. I'm looking forward to working with you.
Thank you, Councilmember Kavan. I have a couple of questions, if I may, Mr. St. Jacques. Can you just briefly walk us through how the community advisory board will work?
Sure. So this was a condition, and part of a discussion with the Queensborough president. We're still working out the details, but we've actually had several internal meetings I think, sort of roughly, the intent is to engage staff at the Queensborough President's Office, involve the Community Board. There is a neighborhood organization, the 32nd Street Association, which we've been in contact with and which will continue to be in contact with to basically form the Community Advisory Board. We would also ask Councilmember Caban and her staff to be involved in forming that. Beyond, sort of extending an invitation and to membership, through the community board, the borough president, and the local council member's office, we haven't really gotten much farther. But I think the idea is to make it as inclusive and as productive as possible, such that the applicants, the local who own the 3 development sites, will be able to have an ongoing and productive discussion with the community about potential concerns and responding to those concerns sort of on a real-time basis.
And can you speak to how what your plan is to work with neighboring low-density property owners to ensure that the construction on your sites will not make their lives unbearable during construction?
Absolutely. So we've begun that conversation. We had one meeting, I believe it was in November, by video. Again, this is another ongoing conversation. As we noted, there's a significant opportunity for as-of-right development at these sites. So were the rezoning not to go forward, there is an intent to develop here. So we understand that the applicant team needs to work with their neighbors, to ensure that construction goes smoothly. So I'll just say again, we have been in contact with the 32nd Street Homeowners Association to set up a follow-up meeting. This would be an in-person meeting. Our contact at that group, I believe he's the chair or the head of that group, has asked for ample time to essentially flyer the neighborhood to make sure that folks that wouldn't otherwise be notified have sufficient time and notification of an upcoming meeting. So we're working out the details of that now and expect to meet either, I'm not sure if it'll be later in this month or in early 2022, but we're working on that now. And also note, I think we touched on this in our letter to the council and definitely in the letter to the community board. There's really significant protections for adjacent property owners in the New York City Building Code. So we'll, obviously have to comply with all of those provisions in the building code. And as part of the environmental assessment statement and negative declaration, restrictive declarations will also be recorded against each of the 3 properties to ensure certain protections are implemented with respect to construction noise and air quality. The restrictive declaration also requires a third-party environmental monitor to not only ensure those protections are in place before any construction starts, but also that they continue to be implemented and are effective during the entire construction process. So we believe that there's, between a commitment to ongoing discussion and engagement with the community, there's also several legal protections that are subject to enforcement that hopefully will ensure a smooth construction period.
Thank you so much. Those are all the questions that I have. If any of my colleagues have any further questions, please use the raised hand function. Okay. Seeing none. Council, do you have anything to add at this point?
No, Mr. Chair, you could dismiss the applicant panel.
Okay. There being no further questions, thank you. The applicant panel is excused. Council, are there any members of the public who wish to testify on the 31st Street and Hoyt Avenue proposal?
Yes. We have a number of advanced registrations for testimony, and we will begin that testimony with Laura Picallo and Stephen Trilivas. Laura Picallo and Stephen Trilivas. Laura Picallo to go first.
Starting time.
I'll remind all public witnesses to please accept any unmute requests that you might see on your device in order to begin your testimony.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, City Council members, and especially City Council Member Caban as our newest representative. We look forward to you representing our community's interests here in Astoria. The proposed rezoning for development on 31st Street and Hoyt Avenue is yet another affront to everything that is beneficial for Astoria. As someone who lives directly behind the proposed rezoning, I am disgusted. It is yet another case of a developer placing profits before the integrity of the neighborhood. This project is built to reinvigorate the area, but if you are actually from here, you know it is a fact quite active. I walk down 31st Street in Hoyt daily, and it is far from desolate, which the developer would like you to believe. Is the developer here to make Astoria, to make sure that Astoria has adequate daycare, senior facilities, or affordable housing, all of which can be built at the proposed site? Or are these rezonings here exclusively to pack more and more people into our trains, pack out and overflow our sewer system, pack out our schools, and overwhelm our already stressed energy grid, as well as overburdening existing infrastructure? We can't keep pretending these sham affordable housing developments are either affordable or beneficial for Astoria. How can we continue to pack out the neighborhood without any changes to infrastructure, knowing fully well that the environment cannot handle it? It's almost criminal. Please ask yourself, what true value does this upzone bring to the people of Astoria? What real value does building more luxury units bring to this neighborhood? How many of these units will actually be affordable? Or does this rezoning solely benefit the developer? Can we add to the community while not destroying the character of the community? Can we add these services while respecting the integrity of the area? Yes, we can. We can easily have HANIC, daycare centers, and shops at this exact site as it is zoned today without this upzone.
Time expired.
This is not a this or that. And as someone who is directly affected by this, I beg you to please reject this upzoning. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Picallo. Council, can we call the next witness?
Steve Trilivas to testify next. Mr. Trilivas, if you could accept any unmute requests that you might see on your device in order to begin your testimony. I can see Steve Trilivas. I cannot.
Hey, thank you guys.
Starting time.
All right, so my name's Steve Trilivas. I'm a homeowner on 32nd Street, impacted by this development. I also have reluctantly taken up the mantle of being my elderly neighbors who don't have the ability to access these meetings. So the three proposed sites along 30th Street have launched position from the local community for a number of reasons.
Mr. Trilivas, can I just interject for a second? Can you turn off your second device? We'll grant you back.
I do not have a second device.
Oh, okay. You're on. There you are. Okay.
Okay.
We'll credit you 25 seconds.
Thank you. All right. So there were 675 signatures collected, 450 supported, but only 8 were in the neighborhood. 225 opposed, 162 were in the neighborhood. As a consequence, we brought our case to the community board, and they voted against this in a mandate landslide 25-4. The general community is against this. If you read local resident feedback, it's an eyesore. It doesn't fit with the architectural framework of the local community. The height of these buildings are not fitting with the overall neighborhood framework. And there's a lot of, reasons for that in terms of the people on 32nd Street. The block on 32nd Street is a plethora of houses that were built in 1930. They have delicate utilities made of terracotta. And in addition, most people that live in the block are octogenarians and pensioners. The development is directly on the property line of these buildings, especially site 2 and 3, and will likely cause significant jam the backyards of the existing homes they abut against. In addition, 24th Road is the lifeblood of the ability of the house on 32nd Street to move in and out of their homes as their parking spaces behind the houses. However, this will likely be used as the primary staging ground for construction logistics. Keep in mind, the impacted block is a dead-end street and has limited access for the residents to get to their home. There's also an abundance of noise and pollution. While they might meet code requirements, will cause a great amount of distress to local residents who, once again, are elderly. All right. As a result, there has been a mass panic of people selling their homes on the block to avoid the multi-year construction project, including the parents of Luis Alvarez. You might not know his name, but his face was the one, along with John Stewart, that was the face of the first responders in Congress. All right. And also, you have to keep in mind, Site 3 is in front of a public school, which will be severely impacted by the noise and traffic that is going to come in our neighborhood. So I asked the city council to vote against this and abide by the mandate that came from the community.
Thank you very much, Mr. Trelevis. Council, are there any further members of the public to testify?
There are additional members of the public, but that was the last speaker on this panel. So I don't know if there are council member questions for this panel. If not, we can go to the next panel.
I have none, Council.
All right, with that, we can move on to the next panel, which will include Renzo Ramirez to testify first, followed by the Reverend Gilbert Pickett, then Nakia George and Victoria Kammer. Renzo Ramirez to testify first. Mr. Ramirez, if you could accept the unmute request in order to begin your testimony. See you. We can see you, but
okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. Good afternoon, Chair Levin and members of the subcommittee. My name is Renzo Ramirez, and I am a member of 32BJ SEIU, here on behalf of the more than 85,000 32BJ members to express our strong support of this project. The developers MDM Development Group have applied to build 3 new 11 and 14-story mixed-use buildings that will include residential, commercial, and community space. We are pleased to announce that the developer has reached out early to make a credible commitment to providing prevailing wage jobs to the future building service workers at this site. We estimate that this rezoning will allow for the creation of new property service jobs and 72 new affordable units. These jobs are typically filled by local members of the community, and because of this commitment, will pay family-sustaining wages, which help bring working families into the middle class. These apartments are needed for working people in Queens. This commitment to good prevailing wage jobs will give opportunity for upward mobility, security, and dignity for working class families. 32BJ supports responsible developers who invest in the communities where they build. We know that this development will continue to uphold the industry standard and provide opportunities for working families to thrive. Thank you so much for your time.
We'll next hear from the Reverend Gilbert Pickett, followed by Nakia George.
Starting time.
Thank you so much. I am Pastor Gilbert Pickett, the senior pastor of the Mount Horeb Baptist Church in Corona. And even though I pastor in Corona, I have a large percentage of my congregants who live in Western Queens. I am in support of the proposed 31st Street rezoning project. We know that 31st Street has undergone a lot of construction that is not an eyesore to that community. As immediate past moderator of Eastern Baptist Association, which is comprised of Brooklyn, Nassau, Suffolk, and the majority of our churches in Queens. Therefore, again, we have a lot of congregants who live in Western Queens. We know that this project will bring about affordable housing We know that this project will bring about a senior center, a youth center, and a necessary universal pre-K program. So it is very important that we see this project go up, as we know that this project, along with the others on 31st Street, will not be an eyesore. And it is unfortunate that the homeowners feel a certain kind of way, but we know that those homes will not depreciate in value. Who wouldn't want to live in New York City, especially in Queens? So those homes will not depreciate in value after this beautiful building has gone up, which will be beneficial to the entire Western community. So I am in support of this groundbreaking effort, and I hope this project gets approved. Thank you so much.
The next speaker will be Nakia George, to be followed by Victoria Kammer. Ms. George, if you could accept the unmute request before you begin your testimony.
Starting time.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well. My name is Nakia George, and I am a community advocate for Woodside Houses in Queens. Today, I would like to explain to you the importance of why I fully support the proposed zoning map amendment and zoning text amendment to facilitate new mixed-use developments on 31st Street and Community District 1, Queens. The proposed development would include over 375 dwelling units. Out of those 375 dwellings, 100 of those units will be made permanently affordable. As mentioned earlier, all 100 new affordable housing units rents will be significantly less than the market rates for comparable units throughout the entire neighborhood. Additionally, allowing this change would ignite the birth of several new commercial locations to be developed and opened. Allowing commercial spaces to evolve will provide new career opportunities for everyone to access within the community. This zoning change has so many benefits for the public use. Additionally, this zoning change will beautify the section of 31st Street's corridor. To be plainly honest, this area has been undeveloped and rather neglected for many, many years. This portion of 31st Street, as opposed to the other portions of 31st Street, is much less attractive and less active. As a woman, I would not want to walk down this corridor alone at any time of the day, especially the nighttime. What I'm trying to say is the portion of 31st Street needs a facelift. The current dark and dangerous street will be reactivated, filled with light and abundance, providing a fresh new heartbeat to Astoria, giving it a place of life and resilience. I'm in full support of the proposed rezoning, and I ask that everyone involved, whether for or against, to look deeper and to look into this proposal. We will all benefit once we all come together. I hope you listen to the words and you understand the importance of us taking the next step to do this development as a community together. Thank you for your time.
And we will next hear from Victoria Kammer.
Starting time.
Hi, my name is Victoria Kammer, and I'll be reading on behalf of Claudia Koger. She was on earlier, but she had to jump off, so I'll be reading a letter on her behalf. My name is Claudia Koger, and I have been a resident of Astoria Houses for over 60 years and the president of the Astoria Houses Resident Association. I am a tireless advocate for social welfare, education, and tenants' right in the Astoria community. As an advocate for my community, I speak today in support of the 31st rezoning, as it will provide our residents with new facilities and resources, including a youth and senior center. The youth center will provide much needed space for recreation and will be open to the community at large. The youth center will promote social interaction, volunteerism, and civic pride while providing opportunities for young residents to be active and interact with other residents. The developer has already demonstrated their support for Astoria Houses and supported this year's Family Day. Their proposed work with Hannock to create programming that best serves Astoria's needs is more than promising. This development will turn underutilized land into a community resource that will be immediately accessible to the people it will house and the seniors and children it will serve. Please accept this testimony as my support for the rezoning. Thank you for your time and consideration. And just one additional, I know I only have a few seconds left, but Annie Cotton Morris is also unable to make it today, and I do have a letter which will be sent. But I would also just like to express my support on her behalf as the president of the Woodside Resident Association and also the president of the Queenswide President for NYCHA. She's a community leader, and in her letter, she discusses how much she supports this project and the need for public housing in Western Queens. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Chair
you.
Levin, the last speaker on this panel. And we will now check to see whether there are, if there are no questions for this panel from council members. We will now see if there are any other members of the public wishing to testify. For any members of the public remaining who have not yet testified and who do wish to do so on 31st Street and Hoyt Avenue rezoning proposal, please press the raise hand button now. Once again, for anyone who has not already testified and intends to do so on 31st Street and Hoyt Avenue, please use the raise hand button now. Okay, Chair Levin, I see no other members of the public who wish to testify on this item. Oh, excuse me. All right. I see.
We had somebody there for a second and then they disappeared. So maybe we'll just wait a second to see if they're coming back on.
If they've come back in. Anyone who is currently logged in as Victoria Kammer and has not yet testified, please use the raise hand. Okay, I see an individual there with, I guess, a different login. So we will now hear from one additional speaker who is currently logged in as Victoria Kammer, who we know not to be Victoria Kammer. Please state your name for the record, and you can begin after. We need you to accept the unmute request. Okay.
All right.
Starting time.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Please,
I had a little problem. Can
please
you
do
hear me?
state your name. Just state your full name for the record, and then.
My name is Bishop Mitchell G. Taylor, and I am reading this letter on behalf of, well, first of all, to the committee and everyone that's here. Councilmember Caban, congratulations on being seated yesterday. I'm reading this letter on behalf of Reverend Bobby Moore, the overseer of the Astoria Baptist Church located at 31-17 21st Street in Long Island City, New York. I would like to express my unwavering support for the 31st Street rezoning. I am in favor of this rezoning because I believe it will support the local employment and boost our local economy. This project will provide construction jobs that will be available to the community as well as permanent building service jobs. The developer has committed to working with Urban Upbound to ensure local hiring and fill the various positions with residents living in the existing community. Additionally, the developer will provide space and resources to do local job training and placement. They are also committed to using MWBE suppliers and contractors and subcontractors throughout the construction phase once the project begins. Additionally, the developer has committed to work with HANIC to build a youth and senior center and fund intergenerational programming. Please support the request of the rezoning of this property as we support it. Thank you in advance for your support. And I'm reading that letter on behalf of Reverend Bobby Moore, the overseer of the Astoria Baptist Church in Astoria, Queens. Thank you.
Thank you, Bishop Taylor. Nice to see you.
Likewise.
And okay, are there any other members of the public who wish to testify at this time?
Okay, Chair, we'll ask one last time for any members of the public who have not already testified and who wish to testify on the 31st Street and Hoyt Avenue rezoning to please use the raise hand button now. All right, Chair, I see no other members of the public who wish to testify on this item.
Thank you. Councilmember Caban, do you have anything that you would like to add? I don't know how to unmute.
I couldn't unmute. I initially couldn't unmute myself. No, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So there being no further members of the public who wish to testify on the pre-considered land use items for the 31st Street and Hoyt Avenue proposal under ULURP numbers C210200ZMQ and 210201 ZRK. The public hearing is now closed and the items are laid over. Now, council, do we have any further votes to take? Any members of the committee that are wishing to vote? Okay. So with that, this concludes today's business. I will remind the viewing public that for anyone wishing to submit written testimony for items that were heard today, please send it by email to land use testimony, all one word, land use testimony at council.nyc.gov. That is land use testimony, all one word, at council.nyc.gov. I would like to thank all the members of the public, my colleagues, in particular, my new colleague, Councilmember Tiffany Caban, subcommittee, council, land use, and other council staff, and the sergeants at arms for participating in today's hearing. This hearing is adjourned.